Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kokona, Wisconsin, riding a CST Tires SSI Decals traveling back Yamaha YFC 450R, four-time ATV Motocross National Champion, number 25, Cody Jansen.
What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm your host, Cody Jansen. Welcome to episode 82 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, our Three Palms review show presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, available for purchase at shop.csttires.com. We come to you tonight on the heels of another action-packed ATV National weekend. Much like Daytona, Three Palms featured a bunch of crazy racing, but this time it was all 39 classes, not just the three that kicked their season off early inside Daytona International Speedway. In the episode ahead, Jason Conti, owner of FourWerx Carbon, and Casey Greek of Impact Solutions joined the show to help break down all the action from the pros to the ladies of the WMX Class, both Pro-Am and Pro Sport, and the season opener for the amateurs. We'll also welcome a special guest along the way as Blair Miller stops by to chat about his first career Pro-Am win. Really looking forward to that right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. So with so much to get to, let's quickly shout out all of our incredible partners before dropping the gate on another special episode. Shout out CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to Ssi Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, FourWerx Carbon, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Integrated Financial Concepts and their Safe to Race and Safe to Ride insurance programs, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, Blendzall Oil, the official oil choice of Digging Deep, Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Their clippers rock, their nose hair trimmer is amazing, and the new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer is next level. Outside the industry, sponsors are hard to come by in our sport, so help us keep Manscaped involved with Digging Deep and the ATV motocross industry as a whole for long into the future. Manscaped's signature line is the Performance Package 4.0, including the new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer that I rely on to keep my beard on point, the best nose hair trimmer ever created, and an array of goodies like deodorant, boxer briefs, a travel bag, and more. So check out Manscaped. I wish I would have sooner, and get 20% off with free shipping by using code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Support all these great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. The 2022 season is here, and we both know you still need parts and gear. No matter what off-road gear or parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website. By using our specific link, we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end, enabling you to help us out while purchasing the parts you need anyway. And did you know that you can buy OEM parts from Rocky Mountain ATVMC as well? Yep, shipped conveniently right to your door. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying all your gear and parts needs. And you can do the same with our Amazon widget. So same concept. Simply click that Amazon logo on our homepage, purchase whatever your heart desires, and that'll help us out down the road. We can't thank you enough for that as well. No new donors to shout out this week, but if you are interested in donating and hearing your name on the show, you can find the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website, and major thanks to all who have donated. You guys freaking rock. Now, it's showtime. The 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep. Let's go. All right, guys, the 2022 ATV motocross season is officially in full swing. The first national event featuring the full slate of amateur classes is in the books, and we're here to talk about all of the craziness that went down. Here to help break down all the action from Three Palms, we have a duo for you tonight, starting with a man who is currently tied for 28th in Digging Deep ATVMX Fantasy. Brought to you by our friends at Ssi Decals, making your identity stick with graphics and decals made exactly to your liking. Get started today at ssidecals.com. From Impact Solutions, say hello to Mr. Casey Greek. Welcome back, Casey. I know you're pumped for this one. A lot of success for Impact Solutions riders in Texas.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, like always. Apparently someone's still liking what we're doing because I keep getting people telling me all the time, hey, show was awesome. So thanks for having me again, and let's get into this thing here.
Yeah, man. Can't wait. And yeah, I mean, people are listening. Our listener numbers are going up every week. So that's a good thing, and a lot of positive feedback for sure. So that's awesome. Speaking of Texas, our third amigo tonight is a guy who originally hails from my neck of the woods, the great state of Wisconsin, but now calls Texas home. Brought to you by Rocky Mountain ATVMC. Click that link on our website for all your gear and parts needs, helping us out in the process. It's owner of FourWerx Carbon, friend of mine, friend of the show, Mr. Jason Conti. What's up, Jason? Welcome back to Digging Deep.
Hey, Cody. Thanks for having me on. Hey, Casey.
It's only right, Jason, that we get you on following the Texas ATV National. Now that the Lone Star State is your home and home of FourWerx Carbon, it's been a couple of years now. Does Texas feel like home nowadays?
Yeah, it's really feeling like home. We're super stoked with the move. Everything's falling into place. It's been a tough road kind of getting organized down here, but it's awesome. We wouldn't, I guess, change anything at this point. So super stoked.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. You're still cheering on the Packers on Sundays in the fall. So you're still a Wisconsinite at heart. Gotta love that. But so guys, let's get into the racing. The first full class schedule race of the year is always so special, so much buzz. And this is one that obviously didn't disappoint. So we have so much to get into. But first, let's have Casey start us off with this week's Impact Solutions Impact Moment, where we highlight something good and positive happening in ATV racing. What do you have for us this week, Casey?
Yeah, I think I usually try to not make the impact moment about myself or Impact Solutions or anything like that. But for me, the big standout is obviously the success that we had this weekend was really cool. 1-2 in the pro class, 2-3 in pro sport, and 1-3 in pro am. It couldn't have been much better in that sense, but just a lot of really cool things. The vibe was so good down there. The community was awesome. And, it's been talked about already, but Bryce Ford gave me his helmet from the weekend. And that's I have a lot of cool memorabilia. I got championship plates. I have the last jersey that Doug wore, or the last race that Doug ever won. I have the jersey that he wore that weekend. I have John's championship jersey. But man, like that helmet is something I haven't gotten any memorabilia stuff in a long time. And, just kind of, I don't really have a real good place to put all that stuff right now. So I haven't been stacking it up like I used to. But this one, I mean, it's already in my office right there, ready to go. So pretty excited about that. So I think I'm going to take the time to say thank you to Bryce and the entire Ford family for that. I think it was pretty hard for Bryce to let that one go. So it was an awesome deal.
I'm sure for the people that can't see the video, obviously right now, many of you, most of all of you have probably seen the Cowboys replica, the Cowboys themed helmet that Bryce wore this weekend. But that's a pretty special piece of memorabilia. It's not just a helmet, right? It's a themed helmet specific for this race, and one he did very well. And so I think that makes it that much more special, Casey, I'm assuming.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm a longtime Dallas Cowboys fan, as hard as that is probably to admit at the same time. But for me, it was, Bryce did really good. His bike, his gear, everything matched into that, play on the themes that everyone seems to be doing this year. And I think it's a trend that's kind of catching on right now. So, the Phoenix boys are doing it. The Ford boys are doing it. So it's kind of cool to see. And I don't know, there was just something when they rolled that helmet out, when they rolled his bike in to the shop, they're at their house. I was like, that's pretty cool. Like it kind of set home. And then when he pulled that helmet out, I was just like, I'm taking that helmet home if you do good this weekend. And really with no true intentions of it, but at the same time, like I really wanted to. And I think he's seen that. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one that will hold a spot on the shelf for a long time. That's a special piece right there. So getting right into the pro class racing action then, man, on last week's preview show, I predicted Bryce Ford would have a fast qualifier this weekend, grab a hole shot and lead for a while in one of the motos at Three Palms. And Bryce was in the top spot there for a little while in the first qualifier. What did you think, Jason? You just had to know that Bryce was going to have a big day at his home race there at Three Palms.
Yeah, for sure. I know Bryce, they ride down there a lot. They have similar, dirt, obviously, all throughout Texas here, and they're used to that sandy stuff. I mean,
knowing Bryce, knowing what he wanted to do in his home race, especially in front of a lot of friends and family down there, I knew he was definitely going to be gunning for that top qualifier spot. Even after Joel put down that heater, I questioned, why he'd even go out there and try to nail down another one, but he was definitely just killing it in qualifying and every lap looked back at as mechanic and just, he wanted that number one spot going into the first heat. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's one of those guys, especially at this race. He's one of those guys that you have a hard time taking your eyes off of because he's special there. So obviously, I think a lot of people's eyes. I'd like to see the pick trend. I haven't looked yet on how many people picked him in our fantasy game, but I'm sure the percentage is gigantic. So Wienen ended up overtaking Bryce by not much. I think it was just about a 10th of a second to take the top spot in that first session there in qualifying. Joel Hetrick would join the party then, quickening the pace by about a quarter second in the final session to take pole position heading into the motos. So the top 5 fastest were Hetrick, Wienen, Bryce Ford, Hogue, and Rastrelli. What were your biggest takeaways from qualifying, Casey? Anything or anyone stand out?
For me, it was kind of almost status quo. It was pretty similar to Daytona, say, Brandon and Bryce, and those guys were all right there. Really, in the first time qualifier, it was Logan Stanfield that stood out for me. I think he still ended up 7th in the first qualifier. I was trying to fact check myself, and I can't find lap times from the first one, but he just rode different than we see him all the time. He rode like we see him ride in practice days and stuff. So I was really happy with Logan's qualifying efforts. I was happy with Logan all day, honestly, but he was probably the biggest standout to me during qualifying.
Okay, yeah, he was strong all day. In that first qualifier, he was 8th. Second one was 9th. So yeah, he was super impressive there. And I thought what I took away from that front group is that they were all right on top of each other. A lot of times we see them close, right? But to be, a half second or whatever it ended up being between first and third, to have everybody stacked up together like that close, obviously that was going to bode well for the racing going forward.
Yeah, and that was huge for all those guys. I think between first and third, there was less than a half second. It was just a few tenths, but it was a few tenths between each one of them. And so I think that was, something that was going to tell us that we were going to have one heck of a day of racing right there. And then it was, there was a little bit of gap back to, say, Brandon, but the next step of guys were really, really tight also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what makes those tiers so tough. But so I didn't hit on my fast qualifier prediction for Bryce, but I did hit on the other two. He came out riding like his hair was on fire in the day's opening moto, grabbing the whole shot and taking off. Behind him, Joel Hetrick was making his way into second and then started chipping away at the youngster's lead. Jason, pretty impressive. The only person who could match that speed that the 19-year-old had in that first moto there was the legend that is Joel Hetrick. It's impressive. I know that this is a track that Bryce knows. We know he's really fast there, but still the pace that Bryce was able to be at and basically to be the only person at that speed other than Joel, that's still pretty darn impressive when you think about it.
Yeah. If anybody's going to, look fast on the track and definitely look like he's going to catch somebody, it's going to be Joel. I think Joel is one of those guys that I think the Three Palms track was kind of his style. He's like a wide open rider and super smooth over jumps, likes to get through those corners, really like blow out of those corners and stuff like that. And I knew he'd catch them because I know Bryce was looking back a little early, and which I'm not a big fan of him looking back because I'm like, man, just power through and run forward. But he knew he was coming. And Bryce held his own for a really, really good amount of that moto. But Joel is one of those guys that you can never bet against, whether he starts dead last or he gets a whole shot. We knew he was going to battle up there, but Bryce held his own. It was a really fun motor to watch.
Yeah, it was that there was a lot of good battling there right from the jump in that first moto. And I'm assuming the looking back comes from, he's coming, right? Like, you're going to see Joel eventually. So I'm assuming that's where that comes from. So Joel makes the pass on Bryce after the finish line, and Bryce actually gets him back in that next corner. And then Joel makes the pass shortly thereafter. And he made it stick. But behind those guys was some of the best racing you'll ever see. So Chad Wienen hadn't got the best start. So it took him a little while. It took him about mid-race to make his way into the top three. But just about as soon as he got there, he stuck it in a berm and lost about 15 seconds. So that took him from third back to seventh with only a few laps remaining, I think about 4. And oh my God, what a battle ensued. So Chad Wienen was furiously charging up to Rastrelli and Janusa while he's trying to make passes. His understudy, Max Lindquist, is, being as pesky as could be, getting in the way, giving the champ all he could handle from behind. All 4 of those guys are duking it out. Casey, when the 2-lap board came out, it was Hetrick, Ford, Hogue, Rastrelli, Janusa. And when the dust settled, the top 3 stayed the same, but everything else got flipped on its lid. What a performance by Chad Wienen to fight and claw his way to 4th. Rastrelli held on for 5th, Lindquist 6th, and Janusa ended up getting shuffled back to 7th. But what a freaking race, Casey. One for the ages in Pro Moto 1.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it just shows like these younger kids, like when they're here, they're the real deal, and it's not to take anything away from like some of the more seasoned guys, because Janusa and Rastrelli were doing the same thing to Chad. I mean, everyone stepped their pace up, and that's where we're seeing these battles where, it seemed like before if Chad got a bad start, he just made quick work real quick, and he's right there on, right on top of Joel. If Joel was out front or whoever was out front, he's just right there ready to go. And where he's battling through, and where Bryce and Joel running 1-2, they had stretched the gap out so big over third place at the time. When Chad got into third, normally he could just ride a steady click, pace and catch up to second. Catching the leader might be a little tough, especially at that point in the moto, but he had to push. And that's really where I think that mistake came into. I think, it looked as he was trying to build a new apex in that corner, the front tire caught the fluff, pulled him right over the rut, and boom, he's stuck off the machine. He's got to pull it back, where he had just kind of made the passes on Max and Jeffrey and Nick and everyone. So they were right there to pounce on him. As soon as he was stuck, they all went right back by him. So they were in such a heated battle is what really turned it into Chad even having a chance at being able to pass back through those guys and salvage the 4th place he did in that moto. But man, I mean, none of them gave Chad a lick of breathing room. Max, I think, was probably the biggest thorn in his side, and I'm sure he would say the same. He was just, Chad passed him, and Max had a line after the mechanics area that I watched him do in qualifying. I was actually sitting there with Mark Baldwin, and Max took that line, and both of us looked at each other, we're like, that was really fast. And we were trying to get like Bryce to do that line, and he wasn't picking up on like what Mark was telling him to run that outside. And I think at certain points, even when Bryce was, and we'll talk about it when we get to the second moto, but man, yeah, Max just freaking, he was the thorn in Chad's side. Jeffrey, Janusa, all of them were right there. And, I think Brandon came out on the better end of that deal of Chad's mistake, because he's obviously the only one that didn't get passed back. So, hats off to Brandon for a solid first moto.
Yeah. So you could see Max using like that I think he was using outside in those 2 corners after the finish line, after the mechanics area. And it was so fast. And he ended up getting Chad back at one point. And I mean, I was like, what is going on? Like he wasn't giving Chad an inch. And Chad's trying to go to the front, and he's having to deal with Max getting in, like not being where he's expecting him to be. I just thought that was some of the best racing I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah, definitely. It was an awesome first pro moto.
Yeah, for sure. So then Moto 2, I mean, a little less hectic, but still features some really great racing as Joel Hetrick grabbed the whole shot and Chad Wienen was in tow. But by the midway point of the race, Chad had whittled the lead down to just a half second or so, but it would never get any closer than that. Eventually, Joel would pull away for a decisive win, a very similar vibe to last year at Three Palms, I think. Jason, Joel Hetrick pulling away at the end of the second moto, clinching the overall win for his 46th career victory as a professional. But Jason, I thought it was shades of last year where he just kind of wore Chad down at the end and made a gap and got the overall win there in Texas.
Yeah, no, I think, Joel getting the whole shot's definitely always a troubling thing for anybody else on the track. So, I knew he could hold his own out there in front, but Chad did a really good job of kind of reeling him back in true Chad fashion. Didn't even look like he was trying. And, but Joel held him off and I mean, he didn't let up. I mean, he couldn't let up, honestly, but and especially I was pretty impressed because if you've listened to Joel's interviews after each moto, I mean, he didn't sound like he was feeling good at all. And like
he didn't.
that guy put it all on the track and did what he had to do and pull off that 1-1. And, you know, super impressive for Chad to put in the motor that he did, but unfortunately for him, it just wasn't good enough. So
yeah, for sure. So when we started to hear that Joel was sick, that was in the back of my mind, watching, you know, that gap get tighter and tighter and tighter. And I thought that a battle between the two was imminent. And I mean, depending on what you consider a battle, but they were, you know, pretty darn close at the midway point of that race and shortly thereafter. And then Joel just ended up stretching that thing out and got the win there. Like I said, the 46th career win of his professional career. But yeah, awesome performance by him. Again, like you said, on the podium, you know, he was having a hard time. He didn't even sound like himself. He didn't sound like Joel Hetrick. And to see him go the distance, stay as strong as he did at the end, I thought that was really impressive as well. Behind those two, there was some serious battles going on, though. Some serious battling between Brandon Hogue, Max Lindquist, and Bryce Ford. And with 2 laps to go, Max was in third and looked like, you know, he had the podium position there in that moto in the bag. And then he ended up shattering a rear sprocket. So a heartbreaker for Max Lindquist there, Casey, in Pro Moto 2.
Yeah, it was something that I've never seen. I think everyone that's seen it, we've never really seen something like that. I've done a lot of off-road races and seen sprockets bend and teeth missing and cracks in them. But to see what happened to that one, I mean, he had to get something in there in a rut and stuff. You know, the track had lots of ruts in it. But yeah. Max was there. I mean, you know, the battle between Max and Bryce, you know, and Brandon Hogue was fierce the entire moto. It was just, you know, who was going to make a mistake? You know, Max got around Hogue, Bryce followed suit real quick after. And then Bryce made a mistake. He went over the berm right after the mechanics area. So that corner was a very active corner this whole weekend.
Yes, it was.
That's the corner that Joel made the mistake in the first moto.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bryce went over the berm, he lost 3 or 4 seconds to those guys. Well, he reeled them back in within like a lap and a half. So it was like, okay, like he has the speed at disposal to get around these guys possibly. But at the same time, he couldn't get the pass and, you know, easily say. And so when Max passed Brandon, Bryce went with him pretty much. They both got around him at the same time. And we didn't know it at the time, but after talking with Max Lindquist's dad, Max was kind of trying to conserve the bike a little bit. So Bryce was just all over the top of Max and then he broke. So then there goes Bryce around him. And we couldn't tell because when Max rode the bike off, he rode the bike off, headed back towards the pits. And we're like, well, what happened? If he's still riding the bike, like there's still something, he's still going to be able to circulate the track. Right. But then when he reappears over by the grandstands jump, he's pushing the bike while running next to it, letting the motor still use what was left of the sprockets. So pretty insane to see what went on there and the turn of events and how fast things can change for that moto.
Yeah. So typically, like in a race, you know, you can predict what's going to happen based on, like, typically there's not these big swings. And this was not one of those races. There was some big swings happening in this one and major changes happening pretty quickly. That track, Casey, you kind of hinted at this, but the track was pretty rough. There was a lot of, you know, those train track style ruts. And then it seemed like there were some like square edges in those train track ruts as well. Am I kind of on the right page there, on the right path?
Yeah, so it wasn't like deep, rough, big roller, redbud style rough or walnut rough. It was really, really choppy. But that real choppy stuff, it's really hard to find the rhythm in, say. And that's what I think we were seeing this weekend is the guys that can find the rhythm and kind of make themselves, you know, get a flow in the track were the guys that excelled. And I think that's really where we've seen Bryce excel, Joel excel, you know. That was the jive of what I seen. They weren't coming in complaining about their hands hurting or arm pump or anything like that. They were really just in kind of a zone the entire day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a couple guys that it was like whether their stuff was packing or whatever, rebound was fast, whatever. But I saw like of rear ends up in the air. I don't think it was necessarily Impact Solutions guys, but definitely some stuff going on there. So during that battle that was going on, like Casey just said, Bryce had went off the track, and I posted, as I'm kind of posting the mid-moto updates, I posted that he was a distant fifth now, and it didn't take long, and I look up and it was distant no more. He made a late race pass on Brandon Hogue to clinch second overall in the day. What a day for Bryce Ford, Jason. He put on a show, so kind of like we had predicted right at the beginning of the day. You knew he was going to be something special. You knew he was going to have some special stuff in store, a lot of people cheering for him, all that stuff that comes with the home race. But Bryce, I think almost surpassed my expectations, because he's looking more like a veteran racer, I feel like, than ever before, where, he's coming back from the back, pushing to the front. He looked poised in the lead in that first moto. I came away from Saturday's racing so impressed with Bryce Ford, not just because he, got that second overall, not because he led laps, got the whole shot, all those things. Just, I thought that we're seeing the maturity rise from him right in front of our eyes. And I don't know if you got the same thing, but what a ride for him on Saturday. Second overall for Bryce Ford.
Yeah, for sure. I think he showed that in kind of the face of adversity, he can really pull it out, because, early in that moto, kind of he got, like you said, he was back a little bit further, started moving his way to the front, made some mistakes. It was, in my mind, way off what I thought was achievable to get past Max and Hogue again, but made that pass on Max and then worked his way up to Brandon. And I didn't think there'd be enough time left, honestly, for him to do it, but I guess he had to be doing the math in his head to figure out what he had to do to be on that podium. And we were all trying to do the math on the sidelines, because with how Chad finished the first moto, obviously we knew Joel was in good shape there, but for a minute there, it was questionable whether Bryce would even be on the podium. And he showed very, I guess, impressive, ability to kind of overcome just some of those little mistakes. And maybe it's just him, a couple of years in and just being super smart. I think I shouldn't say I think, because I know he's been working really, really hard at kind of getting through some of that stuff. So it's all paying off, and it shows. So it's really, really cool to see.
There's some of those things that, and we say it on tons of these shows, but there's some of those things you just have to go through. Like you can't teach it without going through it. And I think that's what we've seen with Bryce over the last couple of years. I mean, we know that speed's never been an issue for him, but you gotta had to experience some of these things. And now he obviously looks comfortable being at the front. And I think that we're going to see more of that going forward. I think that this is just the beginning of that, but he does look like, he's just taken another step, I think, that this off season. And I think that, there's big things ahead for him this season and beyond. A podium for Joel Hetrick, Chad Wienen, and Bryce Ford was, arguably quite predictable, I think, but we saw some great racing on our way to getting to that podium. It wasn't just like it was cookie cutter, Hetrick, Wienen, Ford type of day. We saw some great racing to get those guys there to make up that podium. What was your biggest takeaway from the top three at Three Palms, Casey?
I think we just kind of learned more or less, not so much about them. I mean, obviously, Bryce is kind of established himself as a regular podium contender and a guy that, he believes that he should be there all the time. I think this is his second time being second overall. So, for that, I think that kind of goes without being said, but it's more or less the way things are happening and where we're going to see a little bit more shakeups, I think. And then can't say one rider's established dominance yet. Obviously Joel's won the first two races. Chad's had some, weird events go on. So I don't think we're seeing a sign of what's to come yet, because I think Chad's going to iron out some of the issues that he's had, or he's going to try his best to get there. So we're going to see some tire battling between Joel and Chad. So really from the podium, it's hard to really have a huge takeaway that isn't obvious, but I think it's the battles that we're seeing behind the podium with the options of those guys being on the podium. I mean, at one point in time, there was three different people that were locked into that third place position, and it ended up coming down to, what it did. So that's really the takeaway for me. Is it's still, we're all kind of classifying who's going to take over Thomas Brown his spot, say, and I don't think that's 100% taken over yet. I think Bryce is doing his damnedest to be that guy, but then you got Rastrelli right there, you got Brandon Hogue right there, you got Nick Janusa right there, Max Lindquist. Those guys are all like, no, that's my spot. So it's going to be a hard fought battle all the way around.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love the fact that we don't have a Thomas Brown, in there, a guy that's slotted that we know is going to be on that podium. I love that we don't have that. But yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is just like you said, how close everybody is. Even that third to fifth pack or third to seventh pack, those guys are closer to the top two than ever before. When would you see, like you kind of touched on earlier, but when would you see a mistake from Chad Wienen cost him 4 spots, 7 laps into the race or whatever? Like, we haven't seen that in years and years and years. So the fact that we're seeing that now, I just think that bodes so well for us going forward. I think that we're in store for a bunch of great racing this year, because so far the racing's been phenomenal. The other thing that I don't want to let go by without touching on it, but I posted about this yesterday, but Joel Hetrick, we've seen him now do something he's never done before, winning each of the first 2 races. He's never done that. Not even in his 2 championship seasons has he ever won the first 2 races. So he's literally never been in this position before. Casey, I mean, you work really closely with those guys, and Jason, you do too. But Casey, give me a glimpse into how Joel is feeling. Like, where's his mental space at this point? And we've done a bunch of Joel Hetrick coverage over the last 2 weeks, and having Carly on the show. Joel joined us after Daytona. But I got to believe that, man, he's got to be at such, euphoric bliss right now compared to what we've seen him after some of the hardships over the beginning of the opening races of years past. Man, he's just got to be feeling so good right now with this little bit of a lead, 2 wins. Man, it's good to be Joel Hetrick right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, I want to I'll get onto that, because I love that subject there because of exactly how Joel was feeling after the race. But I wanted to go back to kind of what we were talking about there with,
go ahead,
in a sense of, I think there's more guys now that are available with the raw sheer talent and speed that are going to be able to mix it up with Chad and Joel, as of Bryce Ford, Max Lindquist, Rastrelli, those guys. And that's kind of where I was at, and you nailed it right on the head. Is you cleaned up what I was saying in that sense. Is they are closer, and that's going to be so much more exciting for us. It's not just all about third now. Max isn't thinking, he was second at Daytona, so he's not just thinking, oh, I just want to be third. I just want to be third. I think for years that was such a complacent spot where everyone just wanted to be third because they felt like it was a different battle. Where now these guys are saying, I want to win motos. I want to win races. And I think we have the talent and in the riders that are all in that pack now to do that.
We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. We used to speak of a CST takeover, but now 2022 is the year of CST supremacy. CST's Pulse MXR tires are the choice of Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Nick Janusa, meaning CST tire riders are in contention for Pro Class wins and a possible podium sweep every time they hit the racetrack. CST tires are also the official tire choice of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, but you already knew that. I, your host Cody Jansen, helped pioneer the CST takeover with Pulse MXR fronts and white label soft compound rears on my way to back-to-back national championships and a Pro Sport podium to cap off the 2021 season. The Pulse MXR tire, available in soft and standard compounds, offer the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. Did I mention they offer contingency payouts as well? Visit shop.CST Tires to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Nick Janusa, myself, and so many more believe and trust in CST Tires. Do you? You already know we're Team Blue Crew now more than ever here at the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. And whether it's 8-time and reigning ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, who with his next championship will become the winningest champion in ATV motocross history, or 7-time and current XC1 Pro ATV GNCC National Champion Walker Fowler, who is now tied for second all-time in titles won, it's clear the podium-proven Yamaha YFZ 450R is the winning choice of sport ATVs. This continued and unprecedented success for the Yamaha YFZ 450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the undisputable fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has resulted in an ever-growing Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Best yet, Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program is back and stronger than ever here in 2022, meaning Yamaha riders will once again cash in on payouts and prize opportunities, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ 450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com, follow them at Yamaha Outdoors on social media, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. Ssi Decals is a name synonymous with ATV racing, synonymous with big-time success, and absolutely synonymous with the best-looking decals around. An offshoot of their parent company that was established in 1947, SSI first took shape from owner Ian Harris's passion for ATVs. With what started as just making numbers and decals for riders like Chad Wienen, the company quickly took off, and today you couldn't imagine ATV motocross without SSI Decals. The graphics maker and designer now supports all the top teams in ATV motocross, as well as teams and riders racing GNCC, Work Series, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Canadian Pro Motocross, short course off-road trucks, UTVs, snowcross, and, oh yeah, 6-time world champion top fuel drag racer Clay Milliken. No project is too big or too small for SSI Decals, making your identity stick with championship level graphics. Head over to SSIDecals.com today and then maybe call the doctor because things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their wide range of championship winning chains. From the street to the track and everywhere in between, DID chains are designed to give you the optimal riding experience with great performance and increased chain life. Consistent to the core, pick up your box of reliability today. DID, what drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Namura Technologies. Since 2001, Namura has led the charge in the ATV and side-by-side market, covering more applications than anyone else in the industry. Namura's advanced piston technology uses a NASA-exclusive aluminum alloy that helps to reduce expansion rates, allows for tighter tolerances, and leads to higher overall engine performance for your machine. For more information about Namura's wide offerings of pistons, rings, gaskets, industry-leading top-end repair kits, and recently added connecting rods, visit your local dealer or online at www.namura.com. Namura Technologies, your one-stop shop engine component supplier. We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV Components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals and cylinders, shock and suspension parts, winches, clutch kits, valves, carb kits, bearing kits, and drive chain parts, Bronco is your hard parts source for whatever you need, for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world, visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com.
FourWerx Carbon's innovative lightweight products include top-notch seat covers, carbon fiber and plastic hoods, gas tank covers, exhaust shields, shock guards, and much more. Whether you have an ATV, UTV, or snowmobile, FourWerx has the goodies that will improve your ride and make you salivate. We trust FourWerx for increased function and a sexier look, and you should too. FourWerx Carbon, always working hard to bring high quality and innovative parts to the market. Check them out today at fwcarbon.com.
As for like our Joel Hetrick and his situation after the race, I think he was feeling like absolute garbage. But inside, I think his confidence is obviously growing. We had a very long talk on Monday, just kind of debriefing a little bit. He was out of there because he felt so bad when he left. Saturday night, I mean, he was just out and back to the hotel to kind of start recuperating. And, from whatever he had caught, I think it was more of an allergy thing, but you know how that goes. It gets you down real bad. Mm-hmm. But just, you could hear it in him, his confidence as well and probably sky high, but it's more or less, he don't want to lose that fight or that fire that he's got going right now. So it's, we're not settling. We're not happy. We need to beat him by 20 seconds instead of 9 seconds. Like, we just got to keep doing that and cleaning up that mid-race, moto or mid-moto few laps there that he had went through where Chad kind of closed in on him a little bit, or Chad closed in on him big time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm standing in the tower trying to announce a race, watching, a lot of our hard work with all these guys go in there, and I'm watching Chad just inch in, and I'm like, What is going on? And kind of debriefing about that was just, hey, I had to change my lines, kind of regroup mentally, and then put a charge back in. And that's when we've seen the gap come back. So, confidence is high, but I think for Joel right now, he's still thinking like, I don't got this, in a sense of I got to keep working my butt off, and I'm going to keep working to keep that fire alive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that we see that in other sports. We've seen it's an every week thing, right? I just got to focus on this week. I got to try to win this week. And I think that that's what we're seeing with Joel. I think that that's something that we covered on a few episodes recently. So awesome to see. He's in a great spot. Like I said, he's never done this back-to-back wins to start the season thing before. So again, he's got to be just feeling like he's in an awesome spot. Jason, another rider in a team that you work with is Brandon Hogue of the Music Racing and Repair team. So it's safe to say, I'm sure, that you were just as gutted as the rest of us following his heartbreak at Daytona, but he rebounded in a major way for 4th overall at Three Palms by way of his 3-4 moto finishes. So a great rebound for Brandon Hogue there at Three Palms.
Yeah, I mean, Daytona was definitely heartbreaking, I think, for everybody. I think fell for him. It's one of those deals where obviously mechanicals happen, and unfortunately in the situation he was in, that happened. But yeah, no, he looked really good at Three Palms there. He qualifying, he did, he showed himself there. Obviously Moto 1 did well. He's going to definitely be one of those factors, I think, along with a lot of other guys that kind of come in there. But I know I talked to him, I think it was Saturday night. He came over and we talked a little bit, and he's super kind of mellow on everything, and just he wasn't happy with stuff, and try to give him compliments, but he's not one of those guys that's gonna like talk himself up. So he was pretty gutted, and I don't understand it, because where he's at right now, obviously his first round kind of shot himself in the foot, but no, he's going to be definitely a contender as long as he can keep everything going the way it's going. It sounds like he's pretty confident in himself. He's just got to take some compliments outside of the truck, I guess.
Right. Well, I think that we're all chuckling, right? Because we know exactly how Brandon is. Like most people would be at least pretty darn happy with 4th overall, and Brandon was not, never will be. But I think that's a testament to how bad he wants it, right? Like, I think that, we've discussed it a bunch of times. Obviously he's a guy that Casey's worked with in the past. We've talked to Brandon a bunch of times, right? But he's one of those guys that I don't even know at this point, like, is he going to be happy with a podium? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
He could probably win the overall, and he'd still find something that, he did wrong there, but that's cool too, because he's one of those people that he's super modest about everything, but he also is putting in the work, and it's proven himself on the track. So I think there's big things to come for him. I think he'll definitely be a podium finisher. I think he'll surprise us for sure this year with maybe he'll have another Daytona flashback just without the mechanical. I think it's definitely possible. He's got the speed.
I think so too. I mean, obviously believes he can do it, because he was in position there at Daytona. The one wild card when it comes to him is the tires. Obviously, like we've seen the Kendas, they obviously looked good in the sand at the first 2 races. It's a little bit of a wild card for me. And Brett Musig is, praising these things. If you listen to him or see what he's posting on the internet and stuff, I'm just curious to see what they do on a hard packed track. That's the one thing that I'm curious to see. But other than that, man, I think that you're hitting the nail on the head. I think that we're going to expect big things from Brandon Hogue, and he's not going to be happy until he gets there. So it's going to be fun to see it. You can't help but cheer for that kid. And we know he's sacrificing to be there. Like you said, Jason, he's so modest. He's just a guy that I think just about everybody cheers for. I think we saw that at Daytona when he's, crowd's cheering him on. He's broke down and he's still fist pumping to the crowd. So just one of those guys that you always got to cheer for. Casey, tell me about Jeffrey Rastrelli's day. 5.5 for 5th overall. He was in the mix. He was in the mix all day. He was at the heart of some really gnarly battles all day long. I know that's not what Jeffrey wants, obviously, is 5th overall, but I thought it was a really good effort by him.
Yeah, I think first moto was better for him. I think the second moto was almost kind of boring for him. I think he didn't get a whole lot of time on the machine in between Daytona and Texas, and that's kind of probably the biggest drawback we had. I talked to him quite a bit yesterday, and he was already back on the bike riding. Just got done doing a 30-minute moto, so he's I don't want to say that he's down on himself, but he's not pointing the finger, my bike this or that. He's kind of pointed the finger back at himself, like, hey, I didn't get enough riding time in. I did my training off the machine, but I need that machine time. And so I think that's where we're going to see him, bounce back. He had a really good year last year at Georgia, so I know he has high hopes about that again. But other than that, I mean, just not really his day, not a whole lot to talk about. And I hate to be that way. Like I'm not meaning it in a bad way. It was just kind of a average day. Fifth is great. Yep. It's way better than, DNFing or having some major problems, but there were just no over the top standout moments, I think, for it. I think, it was kind of cool. And I got a hat from him. So
yeah, the hat looks sick. I've been thinking that those leather logoed hats or whatever you would call them, I think that those are sick. But so all fifths or whatever, name the place, but all fifths in this case aren't created equal. And so in my mind, I keep picturing that first moto where, here comes Chad Wienen, and Jeffrey didn't give it to him. Obviously Chad eventually gets by, but Jeffrey was able to, hold off Max Lindquist, who was coming like a freight train, and Janusa was right there too. And I just, again, you hinted at that first moto was probably better than the second moto, but man, like the poise that he showed late in that race, to hold on for that top 5 spot. I mean, things didn't break his way on this day, but it sure seemed to me like he was still riding really, really well. And now if you're saying it was lack of seat time that factored into this too, and maybe just didn't give him that extra gear, man, I don't know. I wouldn't panic. I wouldn't hit the panic button yet. If you're Jeffrey Rastrelli, came away with 5th and it was a solid ride in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think physical wise, he didn't get tired. Like I've watched Jeffrey ride enough laps that I know when he's fading.
Sure.
We went through that for years with him where, he thought he was doing all the right things, training, doing everything he can to be the best person and be the best version. He's figured that out now. He didn't get tired. He just lacked a little bit of intensity that he needed to move to that next spot, to be, on the podium or in those positions. And just with the way the cards fell, it was just a solid 2 fifths, and it's nothing to be disappointed about.
No, I agree 100%. Jason, I know you're an attention to detail kind of guy. You have to love those machines that Rocket Machining and Design put together for Jeffrey there, obviously with many FourWerx Carbon parts, of course, as well.
Yeah, I mean, Rocket does some awesome stuff with their machining and all that. And with Jeffrey, obviously having his own deal this year, it was kind of cool. I do enjoy working with guys one-on-one. The team stuff is great too, but you don't have as much, personal play on your, your color schemes and changing things up. So he basically gave me, we talk quite often, and he gave me kind of free reign on seats and whatever else he wanted to, we wanted to put on there. And
sure.
Yeah, his machines look really good. He's running one of our new, we call it like a race hump seat. It's a shaved seat with a little hump in it. So he's running that this year, and a bunch of our carbon parts, and I think most of our titanium. So it was cool to kind of do this one-on-one with him after a couple of years of him being with the team that he didn't have much control, but they built some awesome stuff. They put a good machine together, and I know Jeffrey, talking to him, outside of last weekend and last weekend too, he's super stoked to just kind of be in control. And I know he was not necessarily happy, which Casey, like I totally agree with Casey, a 5th. Yeah. Consistent 5ths is in this sport is awesome, and you can't, there's nothing to be, bummed out about on that side. But he's one of those guys that he knows he's got it too, and I thought he put in some great races. Unfortunately, it just at that race that there was so much happening, and so many guys were putting in awesome races that it is what it is. I think it was a great weekend for him.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's funny that you bring up the hump seat, because I have the screenshot in my phone yet of when you guys announced that you came out with those for the Yamaha, and I screenshotted them. Like, I need one of these, because Jason, if I had $1 for every time that somebody asked about my hump seat that we would cut personally for the Hondas, man, I'd have $1,000 probably. Like people would ask me about them nonstop. So the fact that you guys came out with one for the Yamaha that I don't have to cut myself, that was awesome. That was music to my ears. I needed to have one of those when you guys announced that.
Yeah, when the Yamahas came out, or not came out, I shouldn't say, but when they became real popular over the last 2 years or so, we've invested a ton of time and energy and money into kind of developing some new product for that. And I didn't really want to absorb that, the cost on doing that mold for the foam, but I was honestly sick of shaving foams for people. Part of the deal with the Fords was that, us being so close to them now, I'm actually, we installed their seats for them. We were shaving their foams, putting their pins in their seats, and I just honestly got burnt out on shaving foam, so I just decided to pull the trigger. But yeah, I know you've got a couple of those, and we actually, funny story, we actually installed 2 new seat covers on your last year's foams for Jason Korn.
So, yeah.
So it was I got my hands dirty this weekend doing that. So
nice.
You did a good job. I should send all my foams up to you to try.
Hey, I got one of the guys in the shop that we're pretty anal about them. We glue the foam down and give it a couple days to set and do that whole thing. So we've been around the block a few times with that. But yeah, I think that's key. And the biggest thing for me, Jason, was going to your seat foam, because if you run any other seat foam, at least for me, we'd tear them up so fast. And then we started using your seat foam and could easily get through a whole season with that seat foam holding up. And that was a game changer for me, because, using other brands in the past before, obviously, the prominence and the rise of FourWerx Carbon, man, I couldn't get but a couple weeks. And, that foam is starting to rip and then slide around, and then it's ripping my seat covers and all that stuff. And now my nice quad looks like a rat because it's got a crappy looking seat cover on it. As soon as I went to FourWerx Carbon, that was never a problem anymore. So credit to you guys.
No. People don't realize how much foam gets worn out, and stock foam is horrible.
Yes,
we pulled out a few pairs of stocks from people's foam this last weekend after we took their seats off, and people stuff their, that breakaway foam with anything they can find. So we've seen a whole lot of stuff, but yeah, foam is definitely key. So keeping that new seat looking good, you got to have new foam under there.
Yeah, I've been there before the FourWerx Carbon days. I had microfiber towels in there and old spreads of old seats, and throwing anything I could in there. So that's funny. Okay, but getting back to the pro class, Casey, Nick Janusa is never going to be happy. He's another guy that's kind of like the mold of these last 2 racers we were talking about. He's never going to be happy with the 6th. But again, he was good all day. He was right in the mix, kind of very similar to Jeffrey. Heck, he was in 5th with 2 to go in Moto 1. He rode well, but what does he have to do to get some finishes that he's going to be happy about?
It's the same old, I want to say it's the same old song I dance with Nick, but it's not, because the first moto he got a pretty decent start and he ended up 7th. Second moto, he couldn't have got a worse start. He was literally, I want to say, dead last or second to last coming around the first turn, and he rode like a bat out of hell. I mean, he rode his butt off the first moto and come all the way through, and I'm just like, I haven't even got to talk to him yet, but I think there's just so much stuff that's changed in Nick's program where he's sort of in like a mild trance right now. And I don't mean it in a negative way or a bad way or a way to insult Nick by any means. Obviously, Nick has become a good friend of mine, and we work very closely together. But I'm just, from the outside looking in, I think that's where he's at. He ended the season so strong last year. He was coming in with a ball of confidence this year, but there's just a lot of things, a lot of elements that have changed in his personal life and in his personal race program. His bike is very similar to last year. All that kind of stuff still the same. His training regimen's the same. And I think that's just a little bit of what's going on with him. But I think we're going to see him start to warm up. He might still be a little frozen riding in the snow all winter. So once he gets a little thawed out here and we get some warmth, maybe Georgia or whatever, I think we're going to see the steam, start rolling off of him and start to progress. I wouldn't lose hope in Nick Janusa at this point of being a podium guy or being like more in the thick of the battle for podiums each weekend, but still not a bad ride by any means. I was very impressed with his second moto ride, even though his results on paper weren't what he was expecting.
I agree 100%. And I think he's one of those guys you can never count out. And again, like, the class is so gnarly that, like that group is so fast and so competitive. And like, again, like that first moto battle that we saw, it just kind of shows like, man, there's no shame in that, but somebody's got to finish fourth or third and fifth and sixth and seventh. And it's like splitting hairs, and it's going to be tough because, every once in a while, there's going to be somebody that finds themselves on the outside looking in at the top five. And that doesn't mean it was a bad ride. And I think that that's what we're seeing with Nick Janusa here. Like, I think that he's one of those guys you can't count out though. Like he's going to be right in the mix. He's good late in races. He's just one of those guys that's always going to be there. So I think that, like you said, I think that things just haven't broke his way so far this year, but that doesn't mean they're not going to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's good days for Nick and ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. This next guy might be the standout of the day for me. Cody Ford rode 10-7 scores to 7th overall in the day on his native Texas soil. Relatively predictable, I think, just because he always finishes better at this race than maybe his season average. He's always one of those guys that stands out at this race, but he freaking slayed it. Like I said, we've been saying how stacked this class is, and he was inching up towards that tier 2 group there. Man, awesome day for Cody Ford. I love this guy. What a ride for Cody Ford, Jason. I think that he's a guy that just, man, like, the dude never quits. He just keeps chipping. And at the end of the race, he was 7th overall. And that was just awesome to see. I think he's a guy that deserves it. Guy I cheer for. Awesome to see for Cody Ford, their 7th overall on the day.
Yeah, I think Cody put in a great ride. Honestly, the first moto, there was so much going on. It was hard to kind of focus in on one person. We were all over the track with our eyes. But second moto, I watched Cody a lot, and he's impressed me heavily. I talked to him quite a bit Saturday night, and he was super stoked about his finish. He's definitely got some fire underneath him about, I think, coming back even this next round and showing what he can really do. I know there's some pretty some big changes made this last race here for him, and they're kind of ironing out some details, but he seems like he's on top of his game as far as where he's going to be. 7th, that second moto, like we were talking about, like, you can talk about 5th, 6th, 7th as being like, some people may not be happy with that, but I tell you, the way these guys are riding behind, and they're not even that far back. They're honestly like this second group of riders up to like 10th place. They may have been far, far away, a couple years back, but these guys are like pushing towards the front. And honestly, if these Chad, Bryce, Joel, some of those guys, if they make any little mistake, these guys are going to jump all over them. And I think Cody's going to be up there, definitely contending. He's shown what he can do against, anybody within, that second tier, I guess we want to call them, even though I think they're still all top tier riders. But But no, Cody had an awesome race. He's such a cool guy. He's definitely one of those guys that he doesn't even like to talk racing with me. He likes to talk about like random things.
Right. Yeah. That's Cody.
When I seen him get off the track, and he just had like some sort of different look to him. Like, he was super jacked about that, and it was really cool to see.
That's awesome. I love that's one of the things I love the very most about these shows and the posts at Digging Deep and stuff like that is covering rides like that, covering rides like Cody Ford's 7th, because that should feel like, I don't want to call it a win for him. He's a guy that's gotten podiums in the past in 2019, but this is, like a win for him, to get a 7th like that is just something super notable. So that's awesome for him. As happy as I am for Cody Ford, though, I am pissed at the same time, because I said on the preview show that he was going to be the tier 3 pick. And like you said, Jason, they're all top tier. They're all top tier riders to me. I say on these shows, we should call it the different groupings as far as ATV fantasy goes or whatever. But I said on the preview show that Cody was going to be my pick. And after qualifying, I got scared and I didn't stick with him. And I would have won for the very first time if I would have kept him on my team. God darn it. I'm so mad. But honestly, so I was in position to have the perfect day. Even I went with Logan Stanfield. I was in position to have the perfect day with 3 laps to go in Moto2 because I had Stanfield. But just as I'm starting to think that this, ATV Fantasy event winner shirt that I desperately want so bad, and I send them out every week to all these people that win, and I still, haven't earned one. But just as I'm starting to think that I'm going to get one of these things, Decker and Stanfield come together. Sounds like Stanfield's Vortex maybe got destroyed or something like that. There went Logan's race and my fantasy win, Casey. What the hell? I'm so upset about this. I can't believe I didn't stick it out.
I think I'm in the same boat you were in. If Logan would have stayed where he was, we would have tied for the win.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking the same thing. I'm like, I got the perfect day going right now. This is going to be incredible. And then they come together and that goes down. So,
right.
Yeah, because my record is not too well in fantasy. So being only 3 points from first, I'm actually not too disappointed in my results so far. But we all know that can change quickly. But yeah, I mean, Zach and Logan, these two, I talked about it on the live broadcast and stuff like that. These guys train together, they ride together, they're working out, they're biking together. I mean, they're going to dinner together. They're literally mirror images of each other in their training programs and everything. Mm-hmm. And so it was funny to see them just side by side, lap after lap after lap. And it was just, I talked to Logan and I talked to Zach, and kind of the same story from both of them. Their line come together. Zach's rear tire got sucked up in there. It hit the box on the side there and ended up breaking the vortex. Nothing either one of them could do. It was not a mechanical human, or like a mechanic causing a mechanical. Someone forgot to do something, or the motor blew up or something stupid like that. It was just a freak thing. I can guarantee you there's a lot of vortexes being moved as we speak.
Yeah. So where does a person mount them? That like to keep it out of the way, where is the best place that a person mounts those things?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different spots that I've seen. There's a good friend of mine, a Northeast guy, that makes a couple different holders. You can actually move it to the front of the machine. It uses, a different harness. You can actually put it into the air box or get it back there with the battery box to kind of keep it a little bit more protected with a little bit of stuff. Chad Yarder is the guy that makes these 3D printed holders. So shameless plug for Chad. He's an awesome dude and very, very particular. If you guys are looking to get a holder or something, hit them up, because it could save your day if something like this was to go down.
Yeah. I've seen those holders that he's got. So like you said, I'm sure everybody's trying to move them now, but yeah, that completely destroyed my day. I was bummed for the whole rest of the day. I'm not going to lie. So then that put Zach Decker, he ended up 8th overall. He got up and going there. He ends up 8th overall. Another solid day for him. And it's funny because in my mind, I'm like, man, am I going to, because again, I got scared of Cody Ford and I even said on the preview show that, you can't put that much stock in qualifying. And I didn't take my own advice, and I'm so mad about it. But in my mind, so I'm like, okay, Zach Decker or Logan Stanfield. And I just had this gut feeling. I'm like, Logan Stanfield's going to outlast him. He's done this. He's such a great pro. He's one of these guys that's been around the block. You know what you're getting from him. He's going to outlast Zach Decker. And that's exactly how it was going, almost in both motos. And then that went down, and again, my team crashed and burned. But Max Lindquist, so he ends up eventually being 9th overall behind Zach Decker due to that broken sprocket. Jason, a fellow Wisconsin guy, how amazing is it to see what Max Lindquist has accomplished at such a young age? His mom reminds us, from time to time, it's amazing that he should still be in high school. So what an awesome, it's hard to believe what he's done. I've said it a few times now, I've ran out of things to say, but maybe you have something else that you can say about him. Because man, to see a kid from Wisconsin, we watched the kid grow up right before our eyes. And now, like he was watching these guys in the pro class when he was on mini bikes, and now he's battling with them and passing them back and standing on the podium with them. It's amazing what he's done.
Yeah. I often question his age, because the way he rides, he seems so much older than what he is. But yeah, I mean, actually, as of this morning, we questioned how old he was in the shop because we were just chatting about it. But anyways, he's such a consistent, I shouldn't say consistent, but he's such a smart rider and seems to be like consistently doing well. And he was in that group where they were just, it was like back and forth. And unfortunately, obviously had some issues there, which, put him back. I think, his day would have went a lot better if it weren't for that, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I can't say anything, I can't say enough about him, I should say. Working with them, having conversations with him. He's a super cool guy, very, very humble as well. Probably one of the nicest kids I've met as far as his age to be in this, to be where he's at. He could probably be a little bit more cocky if he wanted to, but I'm glad he's not. But I think it's going to be a long, there's a long year ahead yet. I think there's going to be a lot more, top tier finishes for him. I think obviously after Daytona, we've seen what he had, but Max is super cool. I think he'll be battling with all those guys up front all year long. So I can't wait to see what next round brings.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can expect him to be at the front in the podium battle every race, I think, at this point. Like, that's what he showed us. Looked like he was going to be in position for third. Like I said earlier in the show here, he was going to be in position for third in the moto, probably fifth overall on the day. And then obviously things went south there. And I said it on the preview show. So Max has as many podiums as Nick Janusa and Brandon Hogue. And Max is an 18-year-old pro class sophomore. That's just mind-boggling to me. Jason, I'll ask you one more question about Max. Is he already the best Wisconsin native rider since Doug Gust? He almost has to be.
I mean, other than you, Cody, I think that's probably true.
Oh, please. I mean, please.
No,
Nick DeNoble got a podium, but
I mean, that's true. No, he definitely, coming from the north, I know what it's like to be up there and to be like trying to ride and you just can't. I mean, there's 6-7 months out of the year where you just can't conceivably ride. It's just too cold.
Right.
But being from Wisconsin, I mean, that kid has put in the work when he can, and he's got so much talent. I think it's super cool to see somebody from Wisconsin be in your home state, because there really isn't that many riders that really took that next step. So I think, by far, I think he's definitely, other than Doug Gust, I mean, he's so young. I mean, there's so much more, I think, to go. So it's really neat to see him out there and doing what he's doing.
Unreal. And you kind of touched on how great of a rider he is. He rides like he's, much older than he is. But when you talk to him, and Casey and I've had this conversation before too, but when you talk to him, you'd never believe he was 18 years old, right? You think he was 25. It's amazing. He's such a great person. It's unreal. Yeah.
I don't know anything about his educational, where he was at, like in his GPAs, but man, that kid is smart. He's well-spoken. He must have done really well in his speech classes, but he's just a super good kid. I think outside of racing, I don't know what he's going to end up going to do, but he'll do well. I think he'll do really well in anything he sets himself to do.
I agree 100%. Casey, so Patrick Turini, super impressive 10th overall for Patrick there. He's another guy that you're working with. Tell me how the Italian is integrating himself here into the American Series, because he's been really impressive so far.
I think for me, he's finding himself right at home. I think results-wise, qualifying, I mean, he looks like one of the guys out there. It's not like, it's awkward or anything. He's happy. He's cruising around the pits, talking to people, and, really finding himself a way and enjoying it. I'm sort of nervous for him on how well is he going to be able to hold up on his travel schedule. They're flying from here. They're flying home, racing there, turn around, flying back here. I just see that as a huge challenge for him.
Okay.
I mean, that's going to be hard on anyone. It's not to say that it can't be done and it can't be done successfully by any means. It's just something that is kind of weighed on my mind. But I think that we're only going to see that as the season goes on and what's going to end up happening for him.
That's amazing. I didn't know that he was doing that. I saw some posts or whatever of him, traveling somewhat, but that's amazing to keep that kind of schedule. That's taxing for sure. But the one thing, and we've touched on this, but the one thing, he's looked really good so far on racing on tracks that like these other guys had been to Three Palms. He probably had never ridden there, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So going forward, if he can integrate himself into these tracks quickly, like we've kind of seen, gets a little better each qualifying session. By the time the motos come, he's ready to go. Man, if he's going to be a top 10 pro, that's going to be impressive. We might have to move him up into, that next tier, the tier 3 grouping for ATV fantasy purposes. But man, really impressive by Patrick there being a top 10 rider at Three Palms. A quiet day for Michael Allred. I would say he ended up 11th overall. I believe he and Chiarini both scored the same amount of points on the day, but Chiarini's 8th in Moto 2 earned him the tiebreaker there. So Chiarini 10th, Michael Allred 11th. We said Logan Stanfield was in position for 8th overall before that mechanical failure that was nobody's fault or whatever, not a mechanic's fault, like Casey said. He ultimately ended up 12th overall there. I'm salty about that one still, but that's okay. Welcome back, Cottrell Altamirano, making his return to AMA ATV Pro Class Racing for the first time since 2019. He ended up 13th overall. And finally, Vince Merman ended up 14th and Cesar Jimenez 15th. But I do believe each one of those guys experienced some issue, at least in one of the motos on the day. I don't know if you know anything about that, Casey, but I think that both Vince and Cesar had a little bit of issues there. Like I said, at least in one of the motos.
Yeah, I know they both had issues. I want to say they had issues in both motos. Vince's second moto, I think, obviously you can see it in the results. It was a lot better than his first moto, but it was a smaller issue, like a brake issue or something like that. But I think they both had some troubles throughout the day for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, so great day of pro class racing. Jason, I want to ask you, what was your biggest takeaway or who impressed you the very most at Three Palms? Doesn't have to be at the front pack. We kind of talked about those guys and our biggest takeaways there, but what was your biggest takeaway or who impressed you the most at Three Palms?
I'm still going to go with, Bryce Ford having kind of an impressive day even though it's his home race. I think, I just think he showed his kind of strength as being not a veteran by any means, but somebody who's been in the sport for a couple of years and just kind of hanging in there, not making mistakes. Because I think obviously it's showing this year that if you're running at that pace, you're bound to make a mistake at some point. I think, and there were some little things that he got into as some of the corners had some pretty loose stuff that everybody kind of got hung up at some point. But, even with those mistakes, he pulled through and held his own. And I guess that impresses me because I know, he's one of those guys that he gets hard on himself if something goes bad, and for him to just kind of overcome that mentally and push and not let up, it was very impressive to me. So he's definitely my, person to choose there for that.
Yeah. Well said. I think for sure. Like you've touched on, like we kind of talked about earlier, just a more veteran-like ride for Bryce. So that was most impressive of all to me. So Casey, we asked you after Daytona, and I'll ask you again. I'm assuming you're going to have a little bit different of an answer this time around, but what did we learn at Three Palms?
I think for me, the learn that we got here is the young guys, the Max, the Bryce, these guys that are in their second year, or third-year pro, but they're still considered kind of in the young aspect of this. I think that's what we learned is they're the real deal. I literally have it written down. The younger riders are the real deal. Yeah. And that's what I think that we're getting from it. I think they've inserted themselves into the position that they are capable of not only podium, but leading, possibly winning motos, possibly winning overalls, or putting themselves into positions to have a chance at that. And I think that's something, like Bryce said, I think he's establishing himself as the real deal. He's not just there for the show or, for the hype or this or that. He's putting in the work. We're not seeing these enormous fades out of these guys where they're running up front and then they're too tired and they fade way back. They're inserted right into this battle the whole time. Bryce led almost 3/4 of that first moto. I think that's remarkable. Yeah. Max was in a dogfight battle the whole time. So that's what I'm seeing from it right now, and that's kind of what the takeaway I think is of I already said we don't have a clear dominating factor at this point. I think Joel is obviously trying to insert himself into that, but yeah, I think still a lot in the air, but for sure the young riders are here to stay.
Yeah, well said by both of you guys. You're both kind of touching on a similar premise that, these younger kids are coming and they're not scared to dice it up with the top two, those two former pros, two former champions at the front of the pack. They're not scared to dice it up with those guys. And I think as spectators, as fans, as ATV racing enthusiasts, that's awesome to see. I think we finally kind of are getting some glimpses into what we've dreamt of for years and years. So that's awesome. So Joel Hetrick has a 15-point lead on the field after 2 rounds of racing here in 2022. I don't think that those boys want to spot him any more of a gap, I would think. So we'll see what Aonia Pass brings just about a week and a half from now, but it's going to be awesome to see. That'll do it for our coverage of Three Palms in the pro class. We're going to throw it to a break here before we get into our coverage of the amateur season opener. So stay with us. As the #1 podcast in ATV racing, it's only right that we partner with the industry leaders in suspension tuning. Insert Impact Solutions. Impact Solutions is a full-service ATV and side-by-side suspension center specializing in the revalving and service of your motocross and off-road suspension. With over 25 years of elite-level knowledge, experience, and testing with riders of all ages and ability levels, Casey Greek, Jay Goebel, and the Impact crew strive to exceed clients' expectations for service and setup. Impact Solutions is the official Elka Suspension Service Center of the United States, offering unmatched product knowledge and experience. Whether you're in need of service, parts, warranty, sales, or technical support, Impact Solutions has you covered. Head over to ImpactSolutionsATV.com or give them a call today.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the US and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0 and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20.
Hey everyone, this is Larry Mills, president of DP Brakes North America and proud partner of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. We at DP Brakes are a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology, dominating the ATV world for decades by supporting the best four-wheeled racers on the planet. This year's lineup includes Jeff Rastrelli, Mark Baldwin and Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, and many more, including Mr. Digging Deep himself, Cody Jansen. Plus all the top 17 GNCC pros such as 7-time champion Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Hunter Hart, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, Adam McGill, and previous champion Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer. Products that ultimately help place them on top of the podium week after week. DP brakes are available through www.dp-brakes.com, or you can purchase them through your local Parts Unlimited stocking dealer, or you can even message us, myself, Larry Mills, or DP Brakes on Instagram or Facebook. And if you have any questions about product or sponsorship support, please ask us. We are waiting for you. Join the best ATV riders in the world equipped with DP Brakes, and have a great year, everyone.
Nearing 2 decades into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back and better than ever, continuing to make major waves in the ATV world. For the 3rd consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for 2-time champ Joel Hetrick. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to Factory43ATV.com to see their full line of industry-leading products available for all makes and models. Head over to Factory43ATV.com today.
Success in the ATV/MX world is similar to what creates financial success as well. The right people, the right advice, and more importantly, hard work and the benefit of an ongoing relationship as situations change and adversity is experienced. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you reach your goals? Haymauer Financial Group can create a personalized, goal-based plan to help your family prepare for whatever life brings. Call me, Scott Haymauer, at Haymauer Financial Group, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, at 920-338-8150. That's 920-338-8150. Offices located in beautiful De Pere, Wisconsin, with registrations and clients nationwide.
All right, guys, I'm stoked to talk to this next guest. He's brought to you by Blendzall, the oil choice of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. To learn more about Blendzall's rich heritage or shop Blendzall's full line of racing lubricants, visit Blendzall.com and follow them at Blendzall on Instagram. He's a first-time guest, but I think we're going to be covering this guy in the pro class before we know it. So this is a perfect time to get to know him a little better. It's your Pro-Am winner from Three Palms. Say hello to Mr. Blair Miller. What's up, Blair? Welcome to Digging Deep.
Thanks, Cody, for having me on. This should be a good podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So what a weekend it was for you in Texas, pal. First career Pro-Am win. That had to be an incredible feeling for you and your family. I can't imagine what that first time feeling was like for you guys.
Oh, it definitely made the drive back to Michigan so much better. Coming back with a 1-3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like they always say that first time there's nothing that beats that. And, it feels like you haven't been on the scene, especially like at the Pro-Am level for a really long time, but it does feel like you've just been building and getting a little better and a little better and a little better. And we've heard from Casey, like your goals this year was to win these races and to do what you kind of set out to do. Like that had to be a really good feeling. Like there's nothing like proving to yourself and everybody else, like, hey, I'm capable of this. And I got to believe that that's how you felt this past weekend.
Yeah, no, it started off great on Friday. Went out, practiced. I thought they kind of shorted us around with only 2 rounds of practice, but I was talking to some of the track officials and stuff, and they said they had to shut it down by 4, which, okay. I understand. Yeah, Saturday, pro sport, rode my heart out. Figured I could do a little bit better in Pro-Am, and there was a little bit left on the table, I thought. I gave it up on the last lap in pro sport for a second to a third overall. Mm-hmm. And somehow wrapped up for the overall.
It's crazy though, because so in both of those classes, Blair, like there was craziness all day long, like there was stuff happening, like, you couldn't even keep track of all the stuff that was happening in these races. And for you to kind of get through those, like you basically got through all of them pretty much unscathed, like that alone is an accomplishment. And obviously like you getting through, all this carnage basically that's going on, around you, behind you, whatever. And to get through all of that, like that's a good feeling too. You just kept putting yourself in good position and it ended up working out.
Yeah, I tried getting really good hole shots and maintaining calmness on the line, especially. And the great hole shots, first couple hole shots, I think, all on Saturday. I was just spinning off the gate, which is surprising for the graded start. But there was so much dirt in the grate itself that it was hard to get a good launch off that, and just managed on Saturday. And Sunday, just, again, management, just, making sure I don't over rev the bike, I don't fry the tires off, and once the first 20 feet of the gate, just hammer down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is weird. I guess we haven't touched on the graded start there yet, but it's just unnatural too. Like you go to the line kind of thinking you're going to have a bunch of traction, and that's not necessarily the case.
No, not all the time. And, it was very hit or miss depending on, if the sun was on. It mattered so much between motos if like, you could think of a good spot right before the moto before you, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then the guy before you, he's going to throw a bunch of dirt on the gate, and now, got to sweep it all off, got to get it all out. But it's, those hole shots. And with the hole shot like that in particular, it pinched up so crazy. By the end of the hole shot stretch, the first, 6 gates from the inside were all covered, and you couldn't, it was hard to strategize, being able to put ourselves into good situations. in Pro Sport Moto 1, I think, might have been Moto 1 or 2, Brett Music went all the way out to the outside. And I was like, there's nothing good out there. And he ended up pulling that first, the heat race hole shot. And I was like,
Okay. Hey, you know what? I've raced Brett enough times that it's like whatever they're thinking on hole shots, they're probably right, because his track record is impeccable when it comes to starts and riding too or whatever. But every time we've went to Three Palms, that second corner, it's that second corner that's been so key. It's like that first lap, if you can get through that second corner and not have any pileups or whatever. And we saw some of the videos of some of the pileups that happened there. And it's like, as long as you can get through there and not get caught up in that, it's like, okay, now the race can start and I don't got to worry too much. But man, like in all of the races, it seemed like just needed to get through that first corner and then that second hairpin, and then you were good to go.
Yeah, that's first Moto Pro-Am, I think, is when that big pileup happened in that second corner. And I was in the middle of that, going around the inside. And I kept a decent distance. I think I was like probably fifth or something in that whole shot. And there were a couple people that went around the outside. I know Donovan and Andrew Shadlick, they got out of the mess, and I was kind of in the middle of it. And I remember seeing, as I'm coming around that hairpin, Joseph Chambers' front fender, like on the inside of the inside, trying to get around me. And I see in front of me I can't remember who two quads it was. It happened so fast, but they were rear-ending each other, shoving each other across the track, and I had to dart back around. And by the time all that was over, hit that tabletop, and it was Donovan, Andrew, and I think Keaton Sturck next to me. And it was, I don't know how I got out of that unscathed. And to look at how many people were stuck in that, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, that's kind of one of those things where you're sitting on the gate and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, I just need to get through these first two corners, then I'm good to go. So it's funny how that works. But, so when there's more competition, this is how I always thought. When there's more competition, there's more like natural high you get from winning. And, we've seen now, like that's just how we are as competitors, I guess. But to see full gates in these classes, to see full gates, there's nearly 30 riders in pro sport. That has to be like that's how it used to be, when I was, kind of coming up in Pro-Am and stuff. To see those classes so full, so stacked, like that's so good to see. And again, it wasn't that many years ago when Pro-Am had like, you'd see races where there was like 7 or 8 guys in it. And now to see full gates, and then, to take wins, to be at the front of those packs when they're that full, like I feel like it's almost that much more special, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And I think it's great having because now in the Pro Sport and Pro-Am class, it's boiled down to the riders. At least when I was in 250s back in 2019 or so, I'm seeing more of those 250 riders now in that 2022 Pro Sport Pro-Am class, like Max Mansky. He's making his debut in those classes. And I think it's great that he's out there. I think it's great that Shimon and all these big names that I've seen come up through the ranks. I mean, it's great. I bring it on. More people, more the merrier.
Well, like you're saying, and I love that attitude, but like you're saying, it just makes it that much better. It just makes it like, that's what I was kind of trying to get at, is the more competition, the more, opportunity you have for that natural high. Like if you're just, and I've said this before on the show, not to you, but I've said this before, where if you're just beating guys that you're like, expected to beat or whatever, like what's the fun in that, right? But if you're able to go out there and it's super competitive, and like, man, whoever wins these races is going to earn it, to be that guy, to win when it's like that, there's no better feeling. And that's obviously like winners like you, winners of Pro-Am and Pro Sport races this year, or even getting on the podium in these classes, man, like you earned it against the lineup that's out there right now.
Gosh. And it was really hard for Pro-Am, especially because that's the first time actually racing that class this year.
Right.
Because they didn't have that at Daytona.
Yeah.
And that's my 4th time on a track this year. I rode at Deckers. Bless those guys. Those guys are doing so good up there. I love them so much. I appreciate them having me up there or down there in Florida.
Yeah.
And I rode down there twice, then Daytona, and then Texas, and just haven't had a break in the weather to get some actually good training in for my hands. And dude, I was fading so bad by the end of that moto, because I had a near crash probably halfway through and ripped the skin off my hands for the first time in 14 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know exactly how that is. And that's something that we battle coming from, you're from Michigan, I'm from Wisconsin. That's something that coming from up here, you battle that. Like it's a hurdle for the first couple races. So that makes it even that much more impressive what you did. Like that's incredible to go down there, have very little, time under your belt, and to go grab a W like that, and 2 podiums already in pro sport. Like that's awesome. In these classes, like we said, they're so stacked. There's so much talent out there right now. They're so deep. Like you said, there's so much, young and up and coming talent. And then like in pro sport, it's special because we already touched on Brett a little bit, but Brett's in there, and to have Zach Kazmarek was in there at Daytona. Like, that's what makes it so cool to me. You have this jumble of young kids and past pros, and let's throw them all together and see how it goes. Like that's what makes the racing so much fun to watch. And it also makes it, it makes it so unpredictable. Like we talk about on these shows, Casey said it before. He's like, we could have different podiums every single weekend. That's obviously not what you want, but we could have different podiums every single weekend. And it wouldn't even be, unexpected really. Like it wouldn't even be a surprise. It's wild.
No, not at all. And it's ridiculous, like how stacked the top 10 is in both of these classes.
Yeah.
Either way, any of these classes, if you get a bad hole shot, you're going to be working for it. You're going to be working to try to claw your way back up. I mean, in my case, like to try to even get a top 5 from a 20th start, that's going to be a stretch.
Oh, for sure.
These guys are, man, they really stepped it up this year. It's really cool seeing it.
Just cool to be a part of it for you, and in recent years, we've seen Decker kind of be the guy. We've seen Zach Decker kind of be the guy. And then before him, it was Max Lindquist. And before him, it was Bryce Ford. And right now it kind of feels wide open for somebody to kind of claim that spot. And I'm sure for you, it feels like, it's your time. I'm sure, you're thinking like 2022 is my turn. I got to believe that's how you feel.
I want to feel that way, but it's still really early in the season. Like, and I don't want to set all my ducks in a row and try to get things. It's right now I'm just going one race at a time. And maybe by halfway, I'll be able to actually put on a decent, like, all right, this is where I'm at. Now I need to attack more, if that makes sense. Right now it's so jumbled between who to attack, who to, look out for. It's just get good positions.
That makes sense. And I wouldn't have expected you to be like, yeah, I'm the guy, but I wouldn't have expected you to say that to me, but somebody at some point, whether it's next week or it's, 5 races from now, somebody's going to step up and assert themselves as the guy in these classes. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I know you could read it, you could see it on social media. There's a lot of people pulling for you, Blair. There's a lot of people that, want to see you do well. There's a lot of people that wanted you on the show. So that's why we needed to get you on here and talk to you about it. So 1-3 for the overall in Pro-Am. 2 podiums so far in pro sport. You got 3rd this past weekend, runner up at Daytona in pro sport there. So if I ask you your goals, you're obviously going to tell me, the titles are the goal for this year. So I'm not going to ask you that. I'm going to ask you instead. So if things go according to plan, whether you win these titles or not, if you're a podium regular, if you have a really strong season, if you have a good year, do you think a year from now, those backgrounds on your quad are going to be blue and you're going to be dicing it up with the big boys in the pro class? Is that realistic in your mind?
I mean, it would be cool, but for me, it's not in my cards. And I would love to run pro and race a YFZ and do all that stuff. But we've kind of established ourselves in our program with the hybrids. I mean, we built the first YZ 250 hybrid back in 2017 here in the States.
Yeah.
And it's been our identity ever since, is this YZ hybrid. And they work great. And this off season, we had one of our local buddies, Brian Klingenberg, build us a kind of a special-ish chassis, because all I've been running forever was a OEM LTR chassis.
Yeah.
And it's right now we're in trial and error phase. We haven't really found many errors,
okay.
But it's I'm still relearning. I spent 6 years learning everything bad about the LTR chassis, which way it's going to throw you into the ground, and this one has a little bit more forgiveness in that. And now I need to learn how to reride that, and it's just enough different to really how should I say it, restoke my fire into the sport, which is great, because I haven't felt this way in a long time about ATV racing and keeping me into it. And I would like to, but I would probably run Pro-Am, pro sport for at least another, if I do, 2-3 years. I mean, realistically.
Mm-hmm. How old are you, Blair?
I'm 18 right now. I'm going to be 19 Sunset weekend.
Okay. So I knew that you were young. So yeah, it's not like the sport's going to pass you by or anything like that. You're nice and young. You got, tons of opportunity in front of you. I totally know what you're talking about. I actually said this to you before we hit record on this thing, that like same thing for me, kind of with the Yamaha move for me. So I rode Hondas for, more than 15 years. And so like, it's exciting for me to be doing something different. Like there's excitement in that. My very next question on my cheat sheet here was, what would you ride if you went pro? Like I've always, you've been on a hybrid, for forever, right? Like since you've been on mini bikes basically. So I thought that too to myself, like, what the hell would you ride? It's crazy. I can't even picture you on anything else.
I mean, I rode a YFZ for the production stock. Back when they still had that back in 2020. And it wasn't even our quad. It was our buddy's stock quad that we put together with a bunch of spare parts, Ryan Day. And it got it done. I liked the quad. I liked the way the YFZs and the LTRs felt. I was able to go from like Moto 10. I remember this at Lake Sugar Tree. And I swear it was like 3 motos later, I'm racing A class on my hybrid and only 2-3 seconds faster on it. Like it wasn't a crazy jump between the two, and I could go between the two, and it was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do remember you winning that title in 2020 on the production stock bike, but still, like, I don't, even you've become that much, better of a rider basically since then, with how well you did last year in the top, top premier amateur classes. And then, now, so still like, it's hard to think of you on a different machine, but obviously if you're progressing the way that you're progressing now, I don't know, the path leads you to pro, I would assume.
I would like to think so too.
Yeah.
It would be cool. It would be cool.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your story, Blair. So the first time that I really noticed you was when you won that title, that 250 title in 2019, just ahead of Lane Baird and Lance Walker there. Hard fought battle. That's why I remember it, because it was such a dogfight that year. And so you get that title. So tell me a little bit of your story, how you got into ATV racing and, kind of how you got on the path to where you are today, where you're a winner of the most prestigious non-pro class at an ATV national. So tell me how it all started. Take me back to the beginning.
So it was like about 14 years ago. My parents got into racing. My dad raced a Grizzly 660. We still have that quad. It's the pit quad now. Okay. And my mom had a Raptor 350, I think, way back. And they got into it before I was able to ride a 50 back then. And they eventually got me into it on a little DRR 50, the single trailing arm, like just really primitive stuff, but it was great. It taught me how to ride and it was fun. Rode locals, D14s all the way up to, I dabbled with some of the nationals occasionally. But I would go and I'd race and we would have a breakdown or something and it just wouldn't be fun. It would always not be a fun time for me at the track. And even though I would be still back then, not knowing, competing with Aaron Salinas and Lance and all them on 90 mods and stuff, and then go home and ride locals for the rest of the season. Like I'd have one race and that would be my Redbud because that's my local national. And it was a great time until about 2018. Ironman was my first 250 national. And I remember going up to staging in 250 mod, and we're back with the old Ironman layout where we used to go up the hill and around the trees. Is way better layout, by the way.
Agreed 100%.
And I was like, wait, why are we going to the way inside? Why are you doing this? He's like, oh, don't worry. And this is when Bryce was still in the class. And he's like, oh, no, Bryce will be gone. Just tuck behind him. You'll be good. Like, okay. And I got like third or something in the whole shot. And I think I got like a third overall on my very first like 250, like, all right, guess we're going for it. And, went to some more nationals and I got my first win there at Redbud that year.
At Redbud in 2018, you went 2-1. Yep.
Yeah, that was a fun moto. It was muddy. It was great. And then in 19, I came out swinging, kind of just, what if we shot for the fence? Like, I got a win, almost another win at Loretta's, but went down in the hole. Why not? And won Texas, blew up at Ironman, and then with a stock motor won south the border, and I didn't win any other races that year. I just survived really, but I was able to keep track of where Lance and Lane and all these guys were. And it was a bad moto at Loretta's for Lance that sealed the deal, and it was surreal. I never thought I would, like, the last lap was the longest lap of my life. I'll never it was like seriously the entire length of a Pro-Am moto in one lap. It was so long, and just the overwhelm, like, wow, okay, I can do this again probably. And moved up to 450s that next year and raced A class with Aaron, Vince Meerman, Lance, and there was a couple others in that class that were tough. And just survived really. I think, I started off 2020. I broke my lower back at Aona Pass, crashed. So you remember where Hetrick went blasting off the track by the finish line section?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
I was just talking about this with my boss, Ron. And that section, I did probably I didn't do the pro way of gracefully exiting the track. I crashed on my back, and it was a grand old time. So that season was kind of not a wash, but just figuring out the 450 bike, seeing where I stacked up. And last year, 2021, I had a crash before the season started around at a local race here at Redbud. I crashed really bad and hurt my shoulder pretty good, and just kind of nursed it along. And then, all right, I'm gonna do the best I can, but just know I can probably do better. And this next season with a better quad, it's actually pushed me to, all right, you can run this speed. You just got to do it now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's why I kind of wanted to touch on your story, because it's so similar to mine, I guess, as far as like at the beginning, it's hard because you're going to only a couple races here and there, and it's hard to compete that way. And then you go home and there's no way to simulate that speed, and you're kind of just getting baptized by fire when you go to the races. And then you come out in 2018 and you win Redbud, and then that very next year. So it's your first year going for the whole championship, like actually going to all the races and shooting for that thing. And you get the job done, by a few points, and get that title. And that's what, seems so special to me. And then you found your footing in the A class the next year. And then, by the following year, which is just last year, now you're third in both Pro-Am and Pro Sport. And now, like, we've just seen this building of momentum, this building of progression. And now you just got your first Pro-Am win. And now everything changes, Blair, because now that top spot on the podium feels like that should be mine. And that's how you're going to feel now. And that's to get to where you are. Like, that's what everybody dreams of. There's people, I'm sure maybe you thought about it the same way, but when I was growing up, I looked at the Pro-Am guys like they were pros. And
oh, me too.
And you just won Pro-Am, Blair. Like, that's so awesome.
It's crazy to see, like, where I was, like, as a kid. I would look up to these guys, and I would I want to be one of them so bad. And then, like, before you know it, by just keeping on, holy crap, I'm 18 years old. I'm in the Pro-Am class. I'm doing fairly decent.
You're one of those guys. You're one of those guys. There's people looking up to you, like you looked up to those people. And it's hard. You can't see it from their perspective. You obviously are evaluating yourself. You're your toughest critic. That's how we all are. But you're one of those guys. And that's, again, like, you just wish that you could take a pause on time right now and just be able to appreciate where you are. It doesn't work that way as a competitor. It just doesn't work that way. But, I'm telling you, there's people that are looking up to you like that. And when you win Pro-Am, I mean, that's what happens. But there's people who, there's people who are like, oh my gosh, that's Blair Miller right there, and it's funny how the tables turn. So Blair, you're from DeWitt, Michigan. We talked about Michigan a little bit. Home of Nick Way, by the way. Do you know Nick Way at all?
So this is actually, like, kind of funny. So him and Ryan Villapoto, they built a bunch of tracks around here. There's one probably 10 miles from me. They're all abandoned now because, he doesn't really come up here because there's places that have better weather. Imagine, right? And I didn't really, like, know the guy or, like, look up to, I didn't know the guy's existence because I wasn't into the dirt bike stuff. I was into the quad stuff until probably 4 or 5 years ago. I oh yeah, Nick Way, he's from Michigan. And really? Like, oh. Then I started learning and realizing like, wow, he's from here.
Yeah, he's a legit dude too. He's not just
he's
some
a legit
guy.
dude. And he wasn't like a legit, like he was the legit dude. He's still out there doing coaching. He's still out there. Who's he coaching now? I think
Cameron McAdoo and Adam Cincerillo. Yeah,
he's a stand-up guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We sat next to him at Supercross and industry seating a couple weeks back. So needed to talk about that. I think about that every time I've seen your name with DeWitt, Michigan next to it. I'm like, I got to ask Blair someday if he's got any connection to Nick Way.
He has another track, I think, up in Belding, where Chad Reed's from. And Chad Reed, the All Four Racing exhaust guy, he rode at that track back way back when, like early 2000s. He got invited to it, or something around the lines of like, oh gosh, how did it go? Like friends through friends, really. Like, come, let's bring this quad guy over here and see how he does. And
nice. That's awesome. So being from Michigan, we touched on this a little bit, but you haven't been able to ride all winter long, obviously. So I'm assuming you're only going to get stronger from here, being that you're going to be able to get some more seat time under your belt. And as the weather improves back home, you're just going to get better. And that's got to be a good feeling too, knowing like, hey, I'm holding my own even better than holding your own right now without a ton of seat time under your belt. And you're only going to get better from here. That's got to be a good feeling for you too, as you kind of look forward to the races to come.
Exactly. And I'm just kind of right now, even with that win, I'm just still seeing how the season's going to play out, because still I'm relearning a bike that I've only ridden 4 or 5 times. Learning its characteristics and all. It's relatively the same as an LTR, just a little bit different. It's just, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we know, obviously, you're going to look to repeat the performance at Aonia. Obviously, you're going to go there, do your best, see how the cards fall or whatever. That's just a little over a week from now, though. So thoughts on Aonia? Do you like it down there? Tell me about that a little bit.
I think the place is kind of cool. I like the layout. I'm not really a fan of the track because, like, I'm a sand track guy. Like, that's just kind of who I've.
You're a Michigan guy. You're a Michigan guy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all we got is sand bubbles and stupid sand, more sand.
Right.
More sand.
Right.
So when I get on those types of tracks, it's kind of hard, but I manage, and it's like the saying, don't get too high in the highs, don't get too lows in the lows. And, I'm forgetting about Texas, and I'm just moving on to Aonia, and I'm going to see how we can dial in the quad, because this is going to be the first time we tested the quad on a strictly hard pack track. So whatever happens, really. I'm not too worried. I put myself in a decent situation now where I can fall back a little bit if keep in mind, if I do fall back a little bit, that I'm not going to panic.
Yeah, I always feel like that's a good racing track too. Like there's a lot of good, 2-line sections and option lanes and stuff like that. I feel like that track makes for good racing at least. And I always think that that's a good thing, because there's no worse feeling than being worried about if there's going to be, a good enough line to pass somewhere or whatever. And I feel like that's one of those tracks that there does seem to be a lot of options to pass, at least at Aonia, I think.
Yeah, it's great. It's great for racing. The whole shot's really long, so you can test out the top speed of our bikes.
Right.
It always creates something interesting, always, for some reason.
Yeah. Hey, one last question I got to ask you here before we get out of here. The hand signals that you throw up on the podium, what's that all about? You got to tell me about that.
So I did it as a joke. I can't remember what race I started at, but I did it as a joke with the 6.9. And now it's just kind of like this thing where I'm going to see how many pictures I can get of me doing the 6.9 on the podium, just so I have like this compilation of like dumb crap I've done over the years. And, it's just kind of a way for me to show a little bit more personality, I think.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're hoping that you're throwing it up there at Aonia again on the podium. That would be good. That would mean good things for you. It would mean you survived more craziness in those crazy classes down in Georgia. But for now, pal, congrats on a stellar performance at Three Palms. There's nothing like that first one, obviously, like I said before. And obviously you got to enjoy it. What did you do to enjoy it? What did you do to celebrate this thing a little bit?
I didn't really do much celebration, honestly. Like, I'm just focusing on, all right,
you gotta enjoy it a little bit, though. you know.
I'd like to, but it's grind time, baby. It's race season time. Can't worry about that. Maybe it'll be worth the reward at the end of the season. Well,
Okay.
Who knows?
Well, that's a good outlook right there. Hey, pal, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being here, and we'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Thanks for having me on. It was a great opportunity, and I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thanks so much, pal. That's Three Palms Pro-Am winner, Blair Miller. We're going to hype him up because he's not hyping himself up right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast, brought to you by Blendzall. Thanks so much, pal.
Insurance. It's not something everyone likes to talk about, but let's face it, if you race motocross, it's something you should have. Integrated Financial Concepts is an independent financial service and insurance firm who offers moto-friendly insurance and helps out riders like Nick Janusa, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Joel Hetrick gain confidence on the track. With their unique Safe to Race and Safe to Ride programs, if you qualify, they have the ability to offer life insurance with living benefits to those who ride. With these living benefits, you may have the ability to access a portion of your life insurance policy while you're still living for things like cancer, heart attack, stroke, or chronic illness. They can also help with many other things, such as home, auto, motorhome, and trailer insurance, as well as college planning, special needs planning, payroll processing, as well as group health benefits for your business. So whether something happens on or off the track, Integrated Financial Concepts has you covered. With their complimentary one-on-one appointments, what are you waiting for? Reach out to Mike Daniele at DANIELE_Michael at nlgroupmail.com today and see how Integrated Financial Concepts can help you. Living benefit riders are supplemental benefits that can be added to a life insurance policy and are not suitable unless you have the need for life insurance. Riders are optional and may require additional premium and may not be available in all states or on all products. This is not a solicitation for any specific insurance policy.
Just like the sport of ATV motocross as a whole, our Digging Deep community is brought together by the love for racing that we all share. Our sport is compiled of many great people, and leading that charge is the Launderville family at Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. This racing-owned family business is a steel and concrete supplier serving the entire United States. Launderville Steel is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products, headlined by the 4130 chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for ATVs and UTVs, off-road truck racing, late-model dirt and pro tractor pulling series, drag racing, and more. Launderville Steel loves their racing just as much as we do, but don't forget about their concrete division as well. With over 25 years of experience, the Concrete Division can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. Their central Midwest location enables LSE to easily serve customers across the United States. For a quote, additional info, answers to more of your questions, or to talk a little racing, head over to laundervillesteel.com or give them a call today. We are proud to be partnered with yet another racer-owned company. Thank you, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. Here at Digging Deep, we have an obvious passion for ATVs and pridefully enjoy sharing the sport's history. Since 2019, when the podcast was born, we've been working to partner with individuals who share our passion, but one man and his vision had been missing from our partnership group. Until now. When it comes to the sport's history, the hallowed grounds of Binky's Forever ATC Museum has it all. Binky Tapscott's mind-blowing collection of 3- and 4-wheelers has preserved history by spanning all makes and models, from Honda 3-wheelers in chronological order to unique builds that shaped ATV racing as we know it, like Doug Gust's iconic DRZ-powered hybrid thumper and everything in between. There's no denying Binky's passion, a passion that we certainly relate to here at Digging Deep. Binky's goal is to share his amazing collection with fellow enthusiasts by making his prized possessions accessible to the public via scheduled visits. Follow Forever ATC Museum on Facebook and watch foreveratc.com for further updates on possibly getting a chance to see Binky's Forever ATC Museum for yourself. We are proud to welcome Binky's Forever ATC Museum to the Digging Deep family. We recite on every Digging Deep episode that we are all about aligning with others who share our passion and love for ATVs, and that's exactly what Blendzall is. For more than 60 years, Blendzall Racing Oil has been the secret choice of many championship-winning riders and engine builders. From World Championship kart racing in Europe to California Speedway racing or the mud and rocks of East Coast cross-country racing, thousands of hardcore racers know that nothing out-lubricates or outperforms Blendzall. Even with Blendzall's wide reach into all forms of racing, Blendzall's lead man David Schloss admits that ATV riders are his people. In fact, he's been an ATV enthusiast since 1986 when he first threw a leg over a Suzuki Quad Sport 230. Fun fact, his passion for ATV racing even led him to launch a popular ATV racing magazine in the mid-2000s called ATV Insider. So Blendzall is a small family-owned business that blends and bottles all of its products in Ohio and has ATV roots Sign us up. That's why Blenzol is the oil choice of the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. To learn more about Blenzol's rich heritage or to shop Blenzol's full line of 2T and 4T racing lubricants, visit blenzol.com and follow them at Blenzol on Instagram. Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant. The best power sports coolant on the market, Evans prevents overheating and boilover so you need not worry about harming your engine or suffering a premature end to your ride no matter what the conditions. Designed for use in ATVs, UTVs, motorcycles, and other power sports equipment, when conditions are at their worst, Evans is at its best. Upgrade to Evans now to avoid overheating and boilover next time you hit the track or trail. Use discount code DIGGINGDEEP20 at checkout to save at evanscoolant.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show. All right, guys, back here with Casey Greek and Jason Conti. And the listeners, you just heard from Blair Miller following his big Pro-Am win at Three Palms. What a ride for Blair to kick off the Pro-Am season. Casey, what a ride for Blair Miller. Awesome performance for him, taking the win at Three Palms in Pro-Am.
Yeah, for sure. That's you had kind of in our notes on, what rider amateur wise that impressed me the most. And I have Kinsey Osborne and Blair Miller written down. I think Blair just incredible. Really happy with him. He wasn't real happy with his pro sport finish, even though he was on the podium. But I think, coming out and winning the first moto in Pro-Am was a huge step for him. And I think that's what he's been telling me all winter, that he's not coming this year to not win. And so I think that's where he's leading on that sense of in pro sport, he was third. He wasn't really happy with that. He was third at Daytona. He wasn't happy with that. To get that win on Sunday, there's a couple of little things he's got to clean up for second motos and get himself. But, he's another one that's from up there in the Snowy Valley where it's hard to ride all winter long, and he hadn't been on a machine since Daytona. So I think he's going to get a little more practice this time. But yeah, very happy with that. I think it's awesome. I'm glad you had him on the show. It will just make his dad's day. I promise you. He's like an avid listener of the show. Him and his mom, Brandy, they listen to the show all the time, and they're always texting me, oh, that was really cool, or this or that. And so I think for Blair to be on the show, it was, definitely deserved, and it's gonna be a good season for Blair. And there was a lot of chaos in Pro-Am and Pro Sport this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that I'm proud of. I think that kind of want to sell the fact that, if you guys go out and kill it on the weekend, we'll hopefully get you on the show to talk about it. So obviously deserved by him. So Blair Miller takes the win, followed by Joseph Chambers and Andrew Shaddle there in Pro-Am. Jason, did you get to watch this one? These classes are so much fun because they're impossible to predict. Where was Dane Molander? On obvious, one of the favorites in here. He was fourth overall with 2.8 scores. Aaron Salinas, who we talked about on the preview show, wins the second moto, but due to a 15th in Moto 1, finished sixth overall. Adam Ulrich grabbed the third in Moto 1, was leading Moto 2 early actually, but ended up 10th overall. Absolute craziness, Jason. Pro-Am, always one of the classes that, obviously we want to watch, especially on Sundays. It's the headliner, but man, craziness in Pro-Am at Three Palms.
Yeah, normally we don't get to stick around for the second moto Pro-Am. Normally we gotta get out early, but I'm so glad we got to this time. The first moto, whoever got the whole shot, got basically, I think they stalled out in that first corner before the tabletop, and guys stacked up on each other. It was probably 10, 12 guys stacked up, and I think that messed up a lot of people's chances of really kind of depending where they were in that stack. But Blair Miller was super impressive. That's probably one of the first times I've ever got to really see him ride in person, actually like watching him, and super impressive, very fluid in his riding. I was very impressed there. First moto, there was so much chaos with that start and everybody. That second moto though, it was one of my, I guess, most fun races I've ever watched. There was so much going on. Molander is insanely fast. I've watched him over the years too, and knew he was fast, but he was all over the track. And he came back, and something would happen. And somebody also that really impressed me that I've never really got to watch was Adam Ulrich. He definitely had a ton of speed. And I know in that second moto, he he got launched off the side of a jump. He actually ended up in another portion of the track, but he took, I think what it was, the handlebars, so the ribs, and he was laying on the side of the track for a while, but he got back on and kept going. But yeah, it was such a crazy batch of motos that, I mean, that second moto was so fun to watch at the end with, Salinas. I'm a big Salinas fan, but I think he must have broke something in that first moto. I think it looked like a lower A-arm or something, possibly.
Is that upper?
Upper A-arm. But that second moto, he came from pretty far back to win that thing, and he just rode his heart out and did a great job. But Aaron's one of those guys. I talked to his dad this weekend, and he's one of those kids that super well-spoken kid, super nice kid too, but so much kind of raw talent there. So I'm impressed with that. But I don't know. I was all over the board with that whole thing there, but man, it was a crazy moto, a crazy group of motos.
Just like the race, right? Like you didn't know what to expect. Yeah.
No, it was nuts.
Yeah, and with Aaron, I feel like we didn't really know. I mean, there wasn't a ton of talk about Aaron coming into the season, into the races. I know he's in college now, but like we didn't know what was going on, and that's where my comment came from in the preview show. Like, man, like, are we going to see him? Like, I don't know what to expect. And yeah, awesome rider, awesome kid, super respectful. So awesome ride for him. But yeah, craziness there. So Blair Miller gets the win. Joseph Chambers, Andrew Shadow join him on the podium. These races got to be so tough for you, Casey. I know that you're always wanting to be politically correct, especially when it comes to the amateur stuff, but these races got to be so tough because you have so many dogs in these fights.
Yeah, for sure. My hat's off to Aaron. What a up and down weekend for him, but I think he capped it off the best way he could, and he put on one heck of a ride in the second Pro-Am moto. Shadow rode incredible. I think at one point I was doing the math, and I would have had, as impact riders, I think we would have had 5 of the top 6. I think Joseph Chambers was the only one that's not an impact rider. Okay. And, with Dane in there, and then Dane had an issue. It just kind of the way the cookie crumbled, we ended up with quite a few guys. I mean, Ian Juka had a stellar day in Pro-Am. For a Pro-Am rookie that really wasn't even positive he was in a race Pro-Am. They were talking about racing A in Pro Sport, and he just kind of bet on himself. He told Rob, put me in Pro-Am. I want to race Pro-Am, and he's turning it on. So, Dane, we know his speed is great. We know his consistency is great, even though right now it's not looking that way. But Dane's going to come out like a ball of fury at Georgia. He rides really well at Georgia. Shadow's standout race last year, our first standout race that we've seen, was at Georgia last year. So there's a chance, I think, with this class, I think everyone, it's no secret, we can see a complete different podium at the next race, and, talking, Pro Sport, Pro-Am, Brett Music, I mean, he absolutely had a stellar day in Pro-Am, or Pro Sport, excuse me. So there's just a list. I mean, Tino Abatello, no one, and I don't work with them, but no one expected him to come out and be at the front of that pack. And I mean, he did awesome all day. Just some little issues that caused him for his paper results to not be as good as what they could have been. Jason mentioned Ulrich. Hope he's okay. That was a scary get off. I mean, he never came off the quad until he actually stopped, and then he came off willingly. Another shout out in these classes, as we're talking about him, is Matthew Hirschfeld. Super good kid, got hurt on Friday, come off in the whoops and end up getting hit. Got a long laundry list of injuries and stuff. So I do want to wish him a speedy recovery. Awesome family. And it's unfortunate. I did get to talk to him on my way home on Monday, though, and he's in pretty good spirits.
Good. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I saw that he got hurt. But yeah, so you started to go down the road of Pro Sport there, and very similar to Pro-Am. So nearly 30 riders in that one. But there's craziness, like there's ups and downs and riders that you don't expect and all this stuff. But one thing I know for certain is it's going to be hard to stop Brett Music consistently. You know exactly what you're getting from him. He's going to get great starts. He's going to be right at the front of the pack at every one of these races, every single time. So he looked really impressive. He made it 2 in a row in Pro Sport there, Jason. I know that, again, we talked about the Music Racing team, but awesome performance by him. It looks like looks like when he was in Pro-Am, 7 years ago or whatever. He looks like the same guy out there getting starts and riding his race and turning that into wins. It's awesome to see because he's another great guy of the sport.
Yeah, no, Brett's super good guy, hardworking on and off the track, obviously. And,
yes.
I was pretty excited to have him come back this year, and that class is stacked. One of the most fun classes to watch out there. So many good guys, but Brett obviously has shown himself this year so far, and I think he's going to be super hard to beat. But he's got a lot of very talented riders right behind him, so it's gonna be interesting. But I think him running his own program again, just they've been putting in a lot of work this off season. I know he's putting a lot of his effort towards Brandon's program as well, but it's cool to see them both doing really well, and I think it's going to pay off for him.
Yeah, the sport is just better with guys like him in it, so I'm glad that he's back doing it full time. I think that you could almost argue that pro sport is more stacked, when you got guys like Brett in there. I wouldn't be surprised. We saw Kazmarek at the first race. So I think that, that's a guy that you can probably expect to see at some of these things, Casey. Obviously Dane Molander and Blair Miller rounded up the podium there in pro sport. And then you touched on Tino Abatiello, so he won, I believe he won the heat, one of the heats at Daytona. So I was kind of thinking like, maybe this is just maybe that was a Daytona thing. And he comes out, and I think he was in the semi, so he couldn't have had a good gate pick. He wins the second moto of pro sport there at Three Palms. And man, like, he's for real. You kind of touched on it already, but like, I couldn't let that go by without touching on it too, because man, super, super impressive. And again, like you said, podiums could be different every single weekend with all the good guys in these classes.
Absolutely. He's like a little ball of fury right now. And it didn't get to come out in the paper results, but that Highline Racing team, those guys, they're doing something right over there, because both their riders that they got are impressive. I'm excited to see Dane and Brett Music get a good start together, because I want to see these two duke it out. Looking at lap times and stuff, Dane's got the lap times a little bit more than say Brett, but Brett's got the knowledge and like the experience, and I think it's going to be really good for Dane to get up there and ride with Brett. We just haven't seen it. Dane was in the second corner pile up in the first moto and come all the way back to second. And he did it. I don't want to say he did it in quick fashion, but those races aren't that long.
No.
And he just put his head down and charged through. So it kind of says what we got, and the future's bright. And I said this to a couple different people this week, and they're like, "Man, look at how stacked pro sport is. Look at Pro-Am." That's only good for the sport in general. These guys are all very capable. There's a few of these guys that are already talking about turning pro. We did get to see Launderville in pro sport. Didn't have a record day for him. I know it's not where he wants to be, but he's also racing 3 classes, which is putting him in 4 motos on Saturday. So he's still trying to get himself into shape and race pace shape. So I think we're going to see that Phoenix, rider start to embrace and get into the mix with these guys. And even in the A classes that he's running, there's a hard fought battle, and the talent pool is thick all the way through.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We're definitely going to see JJ Launderville up there. That's coming for sure. We saw that at the beginning of last season before he got hurt. So that's definitely coming as he rounds into form. Okay, so before we finish up our amateur coverage, Casey, you kind of answered this already. I was going to ask, what was the most impressive? Who was the most impressive, most surprising, most standout non-pro rider at Three Palms? Casey, you mentioned the 2 riders that I was already going to say myself as well. So let's toss it to Jason. Jason, who impressed you, surprised you, or stood out the most at Three Palms?
All right. Well, it's going to be a bummer to both of you, because actually it was Kinsey Osborne for me.
Yep.
Andrea we've worked with her for a long time, close with her. She's super cool, and she's so fast. Being a Wisconsin girl as well, obviously is really neat. But Kinsey, first time I really paid attention to her riding, and so impressed with her. I talked to her a little bit after, that final moto, and very good person as well, just super well spoken and very, very nice person. Her whole family is really cool, but her riding on the track, it was just very impressive. Like, I kind of want to watch these girls go up against some of these guys in some of these like higher up classes, because I feel like they could kind of handle it or hold their own against some of these guys, because you would never know, who's out there.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's for me. I like I said, I don't want to steal the spotlight on her, but when I thought of somebody, that's who I'm picturing as my most impressive rider out there this weekend.
No, I mean, credit to Kinsey and some of the other guys that we touched on, because when they make it so clear that, the names that we're talking about are all the same names, like, that's credit to them. They deserve the coverage. Like I said, for me, it was two names. It was Joey Norris, who won all 6 motos on his way to wins in all 3 of the 250 classes. Casey already mentioned him. What a performance by him. And then obviously Kinsey Osborne was the other one. Man, she's the coolest. I thought that she was awesome on the show. Her dad, Jeremy, was a little worried on how she was going to be. And I thought that she opened up, really well. I thought that she was an awesome guest and was able to articulate, like, she was able to say, like, hey, I look up to Andrea. And I love to hear that. I love to hear that, she's racing against somebody now that she looks up to. And man, so she gave the 3-time defending champ, Jason, you were just talking about her, Andrea Berger. She gave her all she could handle at Daytona. And coming into this weekend, I thought that Kinsey would be, for sure, like a podium rider. But I thought that we were going to kind of get back to the normal-ish of the normal outdoor tracks, and maybe we would see the veterans of Berger and Shaw, maybe have a leg up on Kinsey. And that was absolutely not the case. She went 2-1 in a decisive win over Andrea in Moto2, earned her first career WMX overall win in just her second attempt, which is unreal to me. She looks the part. And like you said, Jason, you would not know, and I don't know how to say this the politically correct way, but you would not know that she's a girl when you're watching her ride, just by watching her, her mannerisms, her riding style, her body English. Like, she's just an awesome rider, period. It doesn't matter how you want to break them down. So what a freaking ride for Kinsey. I think that those girls got to be thinking like, because there's no way that they're not. At least a little bit anyway. So Casey, I'll let you jump in there then, because you touched on, the guys and girl that impressed you the most, at Three Palms. So I'll let you kind of finish this up for us here.
Yeah, I don't think anyone quite expected Kinsey just to jump right in and go straight to the front. I mean, Andrea and Neve have been doing this for so many years and have been kind of a dominant factor in this. It's always kind of come down to those two. We've seen little glimpses here and there with some other riders, but for her to jump in there, and at the same time, it is the second race. I think everyone's still figuring their stuff out. Obviously, Kinsey's got it figured out, and she's not going to back down. She's going to continue to get better also. So I think it's still, there's not a dominant rider in this one either. There's still going to be some mix-ups and some change-ups in this as it goes. But I think, Kinsey's very impressive in this. I think, Blair getting his first, overall in Pro-Am. We've seen him on the podium quite a few times last year in it, but I think getting out there and winning the first one is a statement for him. And I think it's a statement for, everybody. So, and, you talk about Joey. I actually didn't know Joey very well. I still don't know him very well, but I met him when I was down at Bryce and Cody's place there. He was there practicing and stuff, and super cool kid, really cool family. So it was kind of cool because there's not a whole lot of people that I don't know much in this, ATV motocross community. So it was cool to get to introduce to them. His dad, Jeff, I mean, the guy would give you the shirt off his back, like right now. I was doing something, he just jumped right in to help me. I took a second glance because I'm like, okay, let's go. We just went to town. Joey was having a couple little issues with his stock machine that he was riding down there. And I tried to give any insight I could towards, getting it fixed and making it happen so he could keep riding and preparing for the weekend.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. He killed it. And like we've said, I remember saying it last year, those 250 classes are stacked, a lot of great riders in there. And for anybody in any class, doesn't matter who you are, what classes you're racing. I don't care if it's the B classes. If you get 3, overalls, you win 6 motos, like that's wild. So credit to him. Awesome stuff there. And yeah, just tying up the WMX talk. I'm not saying it's over by any means. And I think that you could definitely argue that that Andrea is going to get better. Like, you know, she comes from up here, obviously, like Jason said, you know, I'm assuming she doesn't have tons of time under her belt or anything on the track this year so far. So she's going to get better, especially when we get up to the tracks up here, maybe where it's rougher, the red buds, the walnuts, stuff like that. But man, you know, Kinsey's got, you know, all the confidence in the world right now. So credit to her. And yeah, it's going to be awesome to watch all that play out. Guys, do you have any other names that you want to mention before we get out of here? Jason, I'll start with you. I think that we pretty much touched on just about every aspect of the amateur racing so far, but I didn't want to not give you an opportunity to touch on somebody if you're really itching to do so. So Jason, I'll start with you.
Man, not really anybody in particular. Honestly, just for me, I just want to say, like, it was super cool to be at the races again and see the stacked classes. I mean, there was so much great racing out there. So I just want to give it up to everybody, you know, for doing your hardest or trying your hardest and doing your best. And I think the future of the sport is pretty bright based on what I've seen. And I'm pretty excited to get to the next one and check it out.
Will you be able to be at some more?
Yeah, we're currently kind of planning out the rest of our schedule. We're definitely going to a couple more.
Okay.
It's just based on, you know, it's hard to get away. Unfortunately, we get a little bit backed up here, but if it was up to me, I'd be at every round. It's just sometimes this doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, I hear you. What about you, Casey? Do you have anybody that we haven't touched on yet that you're itching to mention before we get out of here?
I'm working on getting Jason to more rounds. I'm showing him the ropes and trying to drag him into more. We talked about it a bunch this last week, and we were parked next to each other, so it was awesome.
Oh, okay, nice.
Mason Jackson. I know I talk about him all the time, and there's so many other guys that I want to mention, but we can't keep this going all night. Mason was riding incredible. I can't remember what moto. I think it was second moto in Pro Sport. He was out front and was riding awesome, and ended up having a head pipe come off and melted in his radiator fan. And just the whole thing went to wayside. But he's not going to get the credit that he deserved for the way he was riding. So if I'm going to pick someone out of the bunch of people that I would love to talk about for hours, I'm going to go with Mason for right now. And he's fresh in my mind. His dad was just texting me right now. So
nice.
Awesome weekend for everyone. I honestly, it was like a picture perfect weekend. The trip down was great. The whole racing atmosphere there, the track did an awesome job. So, you know, hats off to the entire Three Palms crew. And then hats off to everyone that made the trek. We all know fuel prices, this and all this different stuff going on in the world right now. So, you know, thank you everyone for coming out and supporting all of us. And then, you know, like I said, the track crew, I can't thank those guys enough. I mean, they were there early, they're late, always going. And I think the attitudes of like the track crew, the owner, D Manchak, Michelle Manchak, like the attitudes were really good all weekend. And I think that goes a long way on how the vibe is set for everybody when you're there and you've just spent all this hard-earned money to get there and everything. And you get there and the track crew or like the promoters are just kind of like, meh, it kind of sets the tone. So when you got an encouraging staff and an encouraging promoter, it keeps everyone pretty lighthearted. I don't know. I know Bryce and, you know, the Ford family, they put on the fireworks show and stuff. That was awesome for them. I think they deserve a thank you for that. Love them or hate them or all the in between. It was an awesome fireworks show. And Bryce already told me, he said, I'm going bigger next year. So I think he's en route to try to burn down the state of Texas with fireworks.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, numbers look really good. We said it on the preview show. I think that's an awesome place for racing. I think it makes for great racing. I really enjoy that racetrack. I think that the atmosphere is awesome. So I think, like you said, you couldn't have said it any better. Credit to everybody that went down there. I think it's good to have it be the opener. I think that's kind of maybe gives people a nudge that, hey, we got to go to this one. It's the opener. And just awesome stuff there. I think the racing, the action, everything from Three Palms was awesome. Jason, I got one question for you before we finish up. So I'm about to install my new badass, no shameless plug here, but my new badass blue weave carbon fiber hood on my Yamaha YFZ 450R later this evening. So on the Yamaha, I'm assuming that I just mount that thing directly over the stock plastic, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that just fits flush over the top. Drill your 4 little holes and push pins, and should take you about 2 minutes. So it's pretty simple.
Perfect. I figured, since I had you here, I would verify that I was going to do this thing the right way before I started hacking my plastic or anything like that. I knew obviously with FourWerx stuff that wasn't going to be the case, but
You're good.
Figured that we would be able to touch on we talked about the seat covers, figured we'd talk about the hood before we get out of here. But awesome. I'm so stoked to get to the races. I'm a new Blue Crew ride. I'm just waiting for a couple Walsh parts, and obviously my impact tuned Elkas, my Elka Stage 5s from Casey, of course. But man, I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited for Aonia. I'm glad that we don't have to wait very long to see how all this racing is going to go down. And Casey, I hinted that if we're going to see, this kind of racing all year long, we sure are in for a treat. So I can't wait for what's ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to have incredible racing all year long. The schedule that we have this year, I think all the tracks are very good race tracks, and I think that's something that we need. And we've had for quite a while. I think most of the tracks we go to are really good, and I think it's going to just add enticement to the races. And I think they're located well. And each track is going to kind of suit maybe a different style rider. In a sense, there's a good variety of different tracks. So, strap up your boots and come join us. I mean, when you start threatening me and tell me you're coming to a race, maybe I'll ship you your shot.
I'm not that guy. I'm just not like that. But you got that right, Casey. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for all you do for Digging Deep. I can't thank you enough. And hey, by the way, have you tried the Manscaped nose hair trimmer yet?
Yes, I actually have it in my notes, and I grazed over because we were talking about so much stuff. Yes, okay. Awesome. No nose hairs poking out at customers when I'm talking about them. I'm good to go. I even did a little ear trimming with it. So yeah, nice. I appreciate that greatly. It's awesome.
Yeah, that thing is the best. I swear by that thing. Use code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping. But we had to touch on that before we got out of here. And Jason, you as well. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for all you do for both me and the podcast, buddy. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love getting you on. And next time you show up at one of these things, Casey's going to keep poking and prodding you to get to one of these races again. And we'll have to get you back on because this is so much fun.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And, we always love listening here. You've got our main guy here, Tyler, at the shop. He's every time you guys drop a podcast, he listens to it before I get to, and he always, tells me what happens when I tell him not to. But no, it's always cool being on here. It's always cool hearing you guys talk about it when I can't be on here. But Casey, keep doing what you're doing on and off the track. You're awesome. It was cool to hang out with you this weekend again. But Cody, hopefully we can see you in person at one of the rounds I can get to. I know we talked about that, but yeah, thanks again. Keep doing this podcast because it's really good for the sport, and I appreciate you letting us be a part of it.
You're the man, Jason. Thanks so much, Casey. Thanks again for everything, and man, looking forward to Aonia. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to my dude Tyler. That guy is cool. We had a good time this weekend.
Oh yeah.
I'll see you, gentlemen.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. That's Casey Greek from Impact Solutions and Jason Conti from FourWerx Carbon. I'm Cody Jansen. Thanks to Ssi Decals and Rocky Mountain ATVMC for bringing you these two gentlemen tonight. Thanks, boys. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to re-rack them right now and go racing today. Thankfully, Aonia is right around the corner. Major thanks to tonight's guests, Jason Conti, Casey Greek, and Blair Miller. Thanks to producer Dallas Jansen, my brother, for all his hard work. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple, and a special thank you to Rated MX for their amazing coverage of the races. They've been broadcasting a bunch of the ATV National Motos live on their Facebook page, and it's been absolutely incredible. So just wanted to thank those guys for all that they do. Thanks to our donors. You know who you are. We appreciate you so much. Thanks to all of our partners, CST Tires. Go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, FourWerx Carbon, DP Brakes, Factory 43, Integrated Financial Concepts and their Safe to Race and Safe to Ride insurance programs, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, Blendzall Oil, the official oil choice of Digging Deep, Evans Waterless Power Sports Coolant, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. Support all the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. You can find them all on our website, and be sure to click those Rocky Mountain ATVMC and Amazon banners for all your gear and parts needs, everyday needs, and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. Our show merchandise is available at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out. And if you're looking for another easy way to help support us, visit our website and click the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee buttons. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our effort. Also, don't forget about our voicemail line. Give us your reaction to the show, the races, and or everything in between, so we can play them on the show, hear what you have to say, and react to them. That number is 920-569-3519. We want to hear from you, so give us a call. Follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content, coverage, and more fun stuff as the 2022 season is now in full swing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Digging Deep ATVMX Fantasy has me all fired up, and it's not too late to get in on all the prizes, the bragging rights, and all the fun starting at Aonia next weekend. So if you haven't done so yet, head over to atvfantasy.com to sign up now. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, for Jason Conti, Casey Greek, Blair Miller, Brooke Catherine, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen. Thanks for listening and making us the #1 podcast in ATV racing with over 148,000 downloads last month in 84 total countries. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking gnarly.